Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to everyone in the gallery and those watching along at home tonight. I now declare the adjourned meeting reopened at time 6 o'clock. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, work and play. We pay our respects to the Dark and Young country and elders, past and present. We recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to the homelands and stories of those who also call this place home. We recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people. Please turn your mobile phones off or switch to silent. In the event of emergency, wait for instructions from council staff or security guards. If we need to evacuate, council has 2 emergency muster points, one on the footpath of the Grand Hotel at the front of the building and the other at Frank Balance Park to the rear of the building. If you experience a medical emergency, please alert security or council officers for assistance. Please be advised that this meeting is audio-visually recorded, webcast live and archived on the council's website. In accordance with the council's code of meeting practice, filming and photography are not permitted. Anyone observed filming the meeting may be asked to leave. Members of the public in the gallery are asked to be respectful at all times to each other and to the councillors in the chamber. In accordance with the code of meeting practice, any disruptive behaviour will not be tolerated. Councillors are reminded that they have been elected to represent our community and are tasked with making decisions and solving problems. Please keep the debate respectful according to Council's Code of Conduct and avoid making statements that might defame or offend. Councillors in the chamber are reminded to turn the microphones on before speaking and off again when no longer addressing council. Audio clarity is significantly improved when councillors speak directly into the microphone rather than addressing the room or looking away. In accordance with section 7.1 of the new Code of Meeting Practice, councillors should stand when addressing the meeting if they are physically able to. Councillors, please remember to adjust your microphones to standing position when doing so. Due to their location on the raised platform, the executive leadership team will remain seated when speaking. As Mayor, I support this. Councillors, as you're aware, tonight's meeting is reconvened from the 24th of March 2026 with 15 items carried over, including a confidential item plus a rescission motion. Therefore, with the intention of getting through all outstanding items, I have decided that for this meeting only, the 5-minute debate time allocated to each councillor will include your questions. Rescission motion. Councillors, I've had a rescission motion submitted on item 6.1, integrated planning and reporting, draft document suite for exhibition. The rescission motion is signed by Councillors Smith, Lamont and Castles. I'd like to deal with this rescission motion tonight. To do so, I require an urgency motion. Firstly, Council must determine whether this motion is urgent. I believe it is, as the draft document suite must be placed on public exhibition prior to the next ordinary Council meeting in order to allow for adoption in June in accordance with the Local Government Act. I will move this motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Smith. Any? None of the procedural, only Mayor and only the mover can speak on it. So, all in favour? Is that? No. So, Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles. Oh, unanimous. Thank you. In accordance with section 9.5 of the Code of Meeting of the Code, as all councillors are not present at the meeting tonight, the chairperson is additionally required to rule that this motion is urgent. Therefore, I rule it's appropriate that council should consider this matter as a matter of urgency. Thank you. Rescission motion for item 6.1, integrated planning and reporting, draft document suite for exhibition. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Do I need a seconder?
Yep, seconder, Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have put forward this rescission motion. In trying to debate this at our last meeting, I did come to appreciate that maybe an ask of 10 million was a bit large for the councillors to contemplate. And so I have put this rescission motion through with a different ask of only $5 million per ward that I was hoping councillors might consider. The second part of the motion is in regard to the current impact of the war in the Middle East, and I felt that it was an important matter that we need to consider. So if I could just speak to those two parts briefly. So we do have an allocation of 72 million unallocated. $5 million in my ward is a significant amount. It would be an important opportunity for the community to clearly identify what they felt that money should be spent on. Participatory budgeting is a process where residents directly decide how a portion of public funds is spent. It ensures that funds reflect community needs rather than a top-down approach or priority. Participatory budgeting deepens democracy, it builds stronger communities and creates a more equitable distribution of public resources. It can also increase engagement with our young people as they have more of a voice in how money is spent in their local area. Coincidentally, last Friday in the Newcastle Herald, it was reported that Newcastle Council voted to go down the path of participatory budgeting. So last Tuesday, when we were debating this and our council was rejecting it outright, Newcastle Council was doing exactly the opposite. They were recognising the value and the opportunity and the benefit of allocating a small portion of our budget for communities to have a say on. In Australia, several councils have already gone down this path. City of Melbourne, City of Sydney, City of Canada Bay, City of Darebin. Around the world, over 11,000 processes to do with participatory budgeting have occurred or are underway, and that is often local municipalities, local councils. Lastly, the war in the Middle East. We know it's having an impact on our community, but it will also have an impact on our council. As a geographically large area, approximately 1,700 square kilometres, we have operational staff that need to travel across the coast. As a water authority, we provide an essential service to our community, and we need to factor in any cost increases that might arise from the war. I understand that last Tuesday staff referenced that they were already thinking about this, but as a risk management issue, and while we have unallocated funds, it is critical that councillors, as the governing body, are across this issue and the options in terms of how council manages our resources and service delivery. We don't know how long this war will continue. However, even if it was over next week, there is likely to be a lag time before things return to normal. Councillors, I urge you to support this motion. $5 million per ward is not a large amount in the light of our budget. As our CEO constantly says, we have a budget of over $800 million, $500 million per ward to engage our community in a really deliberative process. 5 million, sorry, 500 is a big amount. Wouldn't that be great? And also the urgency of, while we've got unallocated funds, to be able to set aside an amount in the likely or in the eventuality of the impact of this current war. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will speak against the rescission motion. I appreciate this motion has come before us tonight in good intentions, and I don't discredit that. I think a few things I would touch on. We have, with the money that we've allocated as part of the budget, some of the funds that have come in for specific purposes and specific projects represents a portion of that money, and I think it's important, as I certainly have the view, that we do need a significant portion of that money set aside. I don't believe that needs a return or restriction, but all councillors know that that money is there should something happen, quite like with this conflict. And as I said in my speech last week, We are an organisation that uses about $5 million in petrol and diesel every year. So when that increases 30%, you see those impacts every day. So all of our tractors, all of our cars, all of our trucks, any piece of equipment that uses petrol or diesel, that's certainly something front of mind when we look at these rising fuel prices. And to the second point of this motion, that is something that we're already going to be discussing in the upcoming Governance and Finance Committee meeting. There very well may need to be some budget adjustments to factor in some of those changes in cost, particularly with things like petrol and diesel, also noting that globally there are supply chain issues with things like fertiliser as well, which obviously Council uses. So I will speak against this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Councillor Neal.
Yes, firstly I'd like to ask whether the mover would accept an amendment that we excise from the rescission item 6.1 2C, sorry, not 2C, 2A, which is the tree planting. Will you accept it in relation to excision from the rescission? My question is to the mover, Councillor Smith, is whether item 2.1A, which is the allocation of funding for the planting of the trees, can be excised from your rescission motion. Do you agree to it being excised? But the councillor can excise that portion of it, therefore that portion is not rescinded.
Oh, I see. Can you just add it back in?
You can do it.
I see. No, I agree.
I love it. Mr Mayor, I will just respond that if the rescission motion gets up, I'm happy to amend the alternate motion to include that specifically, if that would satisfy Councillor Neal's point.
But there is actually a much more extensive issue that I think we really need to determine before we deal with this matter, and that is that the rescission motion only goes to 6.1. Item 6.1, is that correct, Councillor Smith?
The IPR, yes.
The 6.1. The difficulty that we have in terms of the finances of the council is that the allocation of the capital works is set out in 6.2, which is an expenditure of a substantial part of the funds that are contained in the $72 million. That if we allocate it to each individual ward, we're actually allocating it twice. Therefore, we'll end up with zero money in reserve as a strategic fund to retain. There are serious structural issues involved with that. And I would prefer it. I didn't get encouragement from Councillor Wright, but essentially it would mean that we end up with but nothing in our retained our strategic priorities fund, because we'd be allocating essentially the 30 plus an additional 25 and have nothing left. Can I please seek advice from the CEO in relation to that matter?
There's really one matter before you, which is the rescission motion. It is a full motion. You can only rescind the full motion. Then if the rescission motion is successful, then essentially you can move what is identified there by Councillor Smith or a variation of that. So there's actually two matters. Of course, if the rescission motion is unsuccessful, then the foreshadowed motion falls away.
Mr. CEO, I might clarify my question because, but though interesting and enlightening, didn't really address the issue that I'm directed at, and that is relating to the allocation of the funds for capital works as contained in item 6.2 that we carried out at our last council meeting. That 6.2 is not being
It's
rescinded.
not being touched.
Exactly.
So the allocation of those monies in item 6.2 relate to this year's budget and essentially is in this year's budget.
Yes.
And so the current budget, so it's unaffected by this motion.
Yes.
Though, depending on some timing, some of those works will then be knitted into next year's budget, but at the moment, that completely stands alone.
The funds that are here directed, I suppose it's really a debate for the second motion rather than the rescission, but essentially because of the structure of the rescission motion and that coupled with the motion, it would mean that we actually had no funds left to maintain in order to spend if we do have an additional issue with the cost of petroleum or any other issue. So on that basis, I'm extremely concerned by the proposition. And I'm also somewhat concerned by the fact that the allocation of funding for trees could actually be undermined by this rescission motion if the following motion is not also carried.
Thanks, Councillor Neal. Yep. Yeah, I'll come back to you, Councillor Lamont.
I did.
Sorry, point of clarification, Mr Mayor. My alternate motion is only in relation to the unallocated funds. So it has no bearing on the operational plan or the capital works budget that is going out on exhibition. It only relates to the unallocated funds, the strategic priorities, in terms of that 72 million that was unallocated. So I'm not clear on Councillor Neal's point, but I just wanted to clarify that. In terms of those allocations to that strategic priorities, the idea is that still goes out on exhibition for the community to still identify their priorities. It would mean that not all of those allocations would ultimately go through because the 5 lots of $5 million, the $25 million would eat into that, but it wouldn't completely remove all of those allocations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The way I see it, and I think I brought it up last week, is if we've got 34 million that we don't know how to spend, I think it should be given to the community to let us know how they'd like us to spend it. That's probably the best way to engage the community. And why do we need such a massive surplus, or why do we need a surplus? I think it's the community's funds, it should be spent on what they want. And to sort of say we'll keep the funds there and then bring it back to council when we need it for anyone's idea, well, the numbers are stacked in a certain way that only half the community is going to get to actually make that happen later on. So I think while we've got the scrutiny on a budget by the community, that we actually put it to them, and I completely support the unallocated funds to be distributed between the 5 wards.
Thanks, Councillor Lamont. Question?
Just a question. So we talk in the motion to clarify about leaving some money behind to deal with the council's operations and service delivery as a result of the war in the Middle East, with a view to internally restricting funds to reduce that impact. To Councillor Neal's point, this motion seeks to basically raid all of council's strategic reserves. So it's not a matter, Councillor Lamont, that we don't know how to spend it. It's a strategic reserve for future priorities.
All right. No further discussion? All those in favour of the rescission motion of Councillor Smith? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid, and so the rescission motion is lost. Item 5.2. Community and Culture Committee minutes and recommendations. Last week we adjourned the meeting in item 5.2, so we'll now recommence this item. Councillor Castles is the chair of the Environment and Planning Committee. Would you like to introduce this item?
Mr Mayor, can I just, if I can, just bring something up? Last week I was voted against joining the meeting by AVL. To this day, I still don't know why that was actually refused. Like, there was never a reason given. In your interview on ABC, you turned around and said that Councillor McGregor was right. Councillor McGregor only spoke about a code breach and nothing to do with doctor certificates. So if Councillor McGregor was right, as you pointed out in your ABC interview, that means I haven't actually been told why I wasn't allowed to actually join last week's meeting. I'd really like to know why I wasn't allowed to participate, because that's never actually been mentioned to me or to the community, for that matter. So through you, could we find out why I wasn't allowed to join last week's meeting?
I'll just say something. We voted on it, and that was it. The council voted on it, and it was voted 7-7.
But what did you vote on? Like, was it because I didn't have a certificate?
Just individual, so I don't need to answer.
Or you yourself, Mr Mayor, if you could actually provide me with a reason why you didn't vote to have me here
I never
by
voted.
ABL.
Me personally, because you never had a medical thing. I know it's not.
You
the
what,
rules,
sorry? What was that?
You never had a medical certificate. That was my personal one. So that's the only one I can speak of here. So.
But you actually admitted to Councillor McGregor, or you said that Councillor McGregor was right on the ABC interview, that no certificate was required.
Well, I gave you it, and that's it, and Councillor McGregor was right. I just said that was my. Moving on. Item 5.2, Councillor Castles.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Community and Culture Committee minutes and recommendations. First of all, I'd like to move that Council receives and notes the minutes of the Community and Culture meeting held on the 10th of March. Just need a seconder for that. Thank you. Are we voting on that, or is it just a mover and seconder?
Was that? Did you get? Was it?
Yes, a seconder. Yep.
So, Councillor, thank you, Councillor. Yep.
Okay, all right. And now I'd like to move some of the recommendations in a block, and there are others that people have called up to consider separately. So I move a block motion that Council adopts the following recommendations. 2636, community grants and supporting guidelines, outcome of public exhibition and adoption. 2637, draft place-based strategy 2026 for public exhibition. And 2639, council support for community capacity and emergency preparedness. So I move that in a block. There's a seconder. Councillor McNamara is over there. Cool. And the following recommendation.
Councillor Castles, could you just hold on a second?
Yep.
So what we need to do is deal with the motions.
Yes.
So what we haven't done at this stage is put the receives and notes the minutes.
Yes.
So that should be put.
That I did ask that.
So can we
Yep.
put that?
Yep. All those in favour?
Minutes.
Unanimous.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And now we would put.
Now we're going with the rest.
Now we'd put
Okay.
the block motion.
So we'll move the block motion, which I've already outlined.
All those in favour?
Yes, it's 2636, community grant supporting guidelines, outcomes of public exhibition and adoption. 2637, draft place-based strategy 2026 for public exhibition. 2639, council support for community capacity and emergency preparedness. I move those as a block.
We need a seconder.
Yeah, seconder. Councillor McGregor. All those in favour?
Beautiful.
Not unanimous, so all those in favour. So
All good.
Councillor McKenna, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith, Councillor Walsh. No. All those against? Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara and Councillor McQuaid. Carried.
Okay. That's bizarre. Okay, so now the others there were three that were pulled out of the block, which was 2634, Central Coast Affordable and Alternate Housing Strategy, an update. And Councillor McNamara, you pulled that out of the block, I believe. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So this one is about the affordable housing. During the meetings, I think there might have been 2 meetings that we've had, I've asked questions about the Margaret Street, Wyong, Tukley and the entrance sites. And I have had a verbal update from the director who isn't here tonight, but she had told me, and I don't want to verbal it too much, but that there was other alternatives that we could look at, including leasing the sites that would give council ongoing monies rather than donating probably $5 or $6 million worth of land. But options that might be available that they would be able to, the staff would be able to work on those, get ready for the next committee meeting. So we had other options for the, and I think that's the new wording on the screen there. I think I sent that around, might have been Friday a week ago, I think it was, before the last meeting. But this is just to pause the process until the staff can bring back the report of the options for the sites. The result is still having these sites for affordable housing, but it is how council make that happen and what are the options available for those locations. The other question was around the release, the word release in one of the items, and it had more to do with releasing that land from being allocated just for car parking off to land to sell under this proposal for affordable housing. So they were also staff are also going to be updating us on that information. But again, to come back to the May committee with those options and also the agreement with what release meant in the original motion. So I commend the motion to you. Yes, pause for further work on the progressing the parcels of land until further report back to the next committee meeting.
You need a seconder.
Have a seconder?
Councillor Wright, seconder. Any other discussion? All those in favour? All those in favour? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Moreland, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. Against? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont. Carried.
Thank you. 2635 is Central Coast sister city Edogawa Japan delegation visit. And this was also something that was identified by Councillor McNamara. I do, however, myself have an amendment to this particular recommendation, which is that council approves a budget amount of $20,000 for the Edogawa Sister City Visit Program, and I'll move that amendment.
You got a seconder, Councillor Walsh, seconder.
I did send that through to Civic. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Can you
We're
tell
in
me?
the wrong spot here. We're on the Woy Woy Master Plan on the board. Just wait. Yeah,
Needs to move to 35.
it's gone in a muddle.
Councillor Castles, did you also want the current points that were
Yes,
already
please.
there, which is
Definitely.
1, confirms mutually agreed dates for the City of Edinburgh for the Mayor, endorses development of a scope proportional visit program subject to confirmation of visit dates.
Yep.
And then as 3, which was already there,
Remove 3 and include
adopts a budget.
3 as 3. My amendment is 3. Sorry.
Happy with that, Councillor Castles?
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. No more discussion. Councillor McNamara, you get a second, or Councillor Walsh? Yeah. So who's Councillor McNamara?
Yes, I picked up the budget issue as well. However, my version was not picking a number. I think the staff recommendation says that they're going to determine a budget, and that's kind of where the staff recommendation stopped. And I was going to just add, determine the budget. Staff figure out what number you're going to put in there, whether it's 20,000 or 30,000, I don't know, but the staff determine the budget, which was what the recommendation was, and report back to the next committee what that budget is. It starts to get a little bit dangerous if we're picking numbers not knowing what the budget is for and covers, but I would encourage the mover to not put an amount in and for the staff to determine what the budget is and bring it back to the next committee meeting.
Councillor Neil?
I think that perhaps having approves a budget is important, that we actually have that in there. But I'm also happy to hear from Councillor Neil what her thoughts might be.
Councillor Mullins, next, are you? Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm just interested if Councillor Castles can advise the rest of the chamber where the $20,000 came from and what makes up that $20,000.
Councillor Stanton, can you put it off just now? Councillor Stanton, can you put your button off to get Councillor Castles?
Back in. So I would appreciate having the opportunity to speak in proper order. Okay, thank you. The relationship that this council has, or through Gosford City Council with the Edinburgh Council, is a very long-term and extremely valuable one. When I first joined Gosford Council in 1991, this relationship was already well established. There were regular visits, not just the councillors and mayor, but also visits from groups of community members and citizens, which was extremely valuable not only for the council, but also for the community at large, and did build a relationship that I think was extraordinarily valuable. I'd like to also point out that one of the decisions that was made during that time was the generous contribution by Edinburgh of our gardens adjacent to the art gallery, something that I think is extremely valuable and valuable because it's a beautiful garden, enhances our art gallery, which I might also point out was determined to be constructed during my time there on a vote from 5 to 4, very closely, and that may not have existed. But that the relationship we had with Edogawa has provided us a valuable artistic part of our community with the Japanese garden, but also it's a very long-term international relationship, which I think is helpful to both our communities, but also provides value more broadly. I would really feel that would be an extremely sad occasion if we gave up this relationship for the sum of $20,000. As we know, we have a budget of almost $1 billion, and I think that, we could possibly amend it to say up to 20,000, and that would ensure that we just weren't spending it willy-nilly. But I am quite confident that the expenditure of this sort of relatively tiny sum is extremely small compared to the value that that relationship has given this city, firstly Gosford and now the Central Coast, for decades. So I urge the councillors to support this with possibly the addition of that one word or two words, up to.
Thanks, Councillor Neal. Councillor Stanton.
Thank you. Would the mover of the motion consider an amendment with a part 4, an addition, that considers extending an invitation to the mayor of Tanabe in Wakayama Prefecture, Japan? An explanation of that follows a similar reasoning as Councillor Neal just explained. This particular area of Tanabe used to be the exact same relationship as Edogawa for the Wyong Council. This is the relationship for Gosford City Council, and the City of Tanabe is very interested in extending their relationship with Central Coast Council, as it used to hold many visits between our places.
Councillor Smith. I'll come to you, Councillor Castles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will just speak to this. I don't think...
Sorry?
was it an amendment, or were you just asking Councillor Castles to consider it? Have you formally moved an amendment? Because Councillor Castles said she would respond to it.
Press the button. I don't have any major issue with including that as well, but I wonder whether we would be better off to bring that idea, perhaps in a bit more detail to the next community and culture meeting. If the mover of the amendment will be willing to accept that idea.
Councillor Castles, can you put your
yes,
buzzer up? Councillor Smith.
I suppose I'm just considering that if we are resolving potentially to explore mutually agreed dates, that it might be the appropriate timing to be exploring this with both mayors at the same time, as otherwise we would need to be extending 2 different visits out, which is why I thought it was a timely thing, though I appreciate that this is not the usual method.
Councillor Smith, I think you wanted to...
All right.
She's going to ask a question of staff, I think.
Question of staff first, if that's okay, Councillor Smith. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not quite sure to who, but is there any extra information that can be given to us tonight regarding the relationship between the old Wyong Shire Council and the Wakayama Prefecture in Japan, or not? I'm just interested to know where we are with this one before we kind of attach it to this particular recommendation.
Look, we have no information on this before us now. I would be very careful about these things. I've been involved with Japanese sister cities for a long period of time in a range of areas, and these things have to be handled individually and very carefully. If council is of a view that they wanted to progress or reinstate that relationship, I think we'd be better off to deal with that separately and deal with that in a very careful and structured way. Intergovernmental relations, particularly that in Japan, is a very sensitive and very important to the Japanese community as well.
Sorry. Thank you to the CEO and the staff. I have to say, I think that we would be wise to follow that advice and seek, if we wish to follow this point 4 up, that we seek a report to come to the next community and culture meeting. I'd be happy for us to do that and hasten slowly.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for
Mayor.
waiting, Councillor Smith.
Sorry?
Thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I will just comment on that proposed part 4. With respect to Councillor Stanton, I think it would almost be seen as quite rude to Edagawa City to invite 2 mayors to attend the same delegation. And my recollection, and I don't know whether Councillor McNamara was on Wyong Council at that time, is that Wyong Council consciously abandoned their sister city relationships. They dropped them. So to now go and invite the Mayor of Tanabe to attend without going through a process of making contact again, sounding out that relationship, would just be, in my view, entirely inappropriate. To be clear, in 2019, Central Coast Council renewed the sister city relationship with Edagawa, and a delegation from this council went over, and I was very privileged to be part of that delegation to actually re-sign that sister city agreement. So it's very current, it's a very live agreement. We're involved with the Edagawa Youth Wing visit each year. We've had festivals at the Edagawa Commemorative Gardens in the past few years. So I really think that in terms of culture and protocol, I think Councillor Castle's suggestion that that be considered if Councillor Stanton wants to continue that at a meeting would be more appropriate. In terms of the allocation of funds, in informally chatting to Director Smith, it was she that thought that $20,000 would be an appropriate figure, not saying that that would be the amount spent, but that it was a reasonable ballpark figure to work with. And just to be clear, I think, Mr. Mayor, I know you sent a letter just signalling that we were interested, if, as Edagawa had expressed interest in coming, that we were interested in considering that. I think in that letter we invited 2 or 3 people for about 3 or 4 days. So that money would cover accommodation, it would cover some of their expenses during that time. But when delegations have gone over to Edagawa, there have been formal dinners, there have been community dinners that would require some of that budget allocation. And of course, there's just hosting the delegation in terms of showing them around the Central Coast and various activities like that. So, Mr. Mayor, I would hope we can just go forward with this as is. That's not to say the full amount will be spent, but just to enable some planning to occur, because I think over the past few months, whenever this has been raised, The response I get from staff or yourself or your office is we don't have a budget. And so let's give it a budget so that the staff can actually start working on something. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor McGregor.
Is what's on the screen now what we're voting on, or is it what was on the
No,
screen before this?
It's not. What's on the screen now still needs to have council approves a budget of $20,000, and the motion has been moved by Castles and second Councillor Walsh. So that's what's before the council as we speak. You can see it now there.
Okay. Can I suggest I read that as 121, but I'm taking it that the highlighted amount is 0.3. Can I suggest a 0.4 that the Community and Culture Committee receive a report on the former sister city relationships as an addendum, 0.4?
No, are you going to move that as an amendment, or are you going to seek the
I'll
consent?
seek the concurrence of the
Mover and second,
original
which is
mover and
Castles
seconder
and
if
Walsh.
they will accept an addendum for the Community and Culture Committee to receive a report on the former sister city relationships of Gosford and Wyong Council.
Do they accept that?
Yep.
Okay.
Councillor
Through you-
Nolan.
through
Thanks,
you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor,
McGregor.
I'm happy
You
to-
finished, Councillor McGregor?
I'm sorry.
Alright.
I'm sorry. Apologies.
Sorry.
I won't take long. Thank you. Councillors, the reason why I've sought to move that amendment is so that Tanabe is not necessarily specially put forward ahead of some of the other ones that we have either existing relationships now with or that we had previously. Because if you look at the minutes from the August 2011 council meeting of Wyong Council, when the Emeritus former Deputy Mayor, former Mayor of Wyong, who's not here tonight, was the Mayor, the relationship was expunged. And if you look at the minutes from 2007, I don't have the date in front of me, a simple Google search will be able to work this out, you'll see that the relationship didn't exist then either. So we're now talking about a period of 1.5, potentially 2 decades or longer without that Tanabe relationship functioning. The school students that came out here in 2011 were actually hosted by Tumbiumbi High School. So rather than signalling out Tanabe, noting that there was Czechoslovakia and several other Chinese cities, I'd rather get a report with the official information from staff about what the status of those relationships were, why they were commenced or why they ceased, and have that go through the committee so that we can properly consider this rather than just naming cities on the fly and hoping to include other people. Let's work off what the factual information is. Let's investigate and dive into the history, but do it in a proper way where we can resolve something which is appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Stan.
Sorry, I've just been given some conflicting instructions from the staff in the screen in the last 5-10 minutes. Could I just clarify what has been accepted by the mover and what is actually going forward on the screen right now? Maybe through the CEO, as I believe there were some instructions there.
What has been accepted by the mover and the seconder is what's on the screen. 0.4 needs to be tidied. It just should say that the Community and Culture Committee receive a report on the former city relationships of Gosford and Wyong Council. So it's just a duplication of words. Just needs to be pulled out. It's my understanding, the mover and seconder, could they just confirm that's Councillor Castles and Councillor Walsh? You confirm that? Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy with the 4-part motion on the screen. I just wanted to ask the original mover if we have some changing in number 3, approves a budget up to $20,000.
I'm happy to approves a budget of up to $20,000. We know already that Director Smith has mentioned that this would be a doable amount, is my understanding as well. So I think if we leave it at that, perhaps we could just include, if at the end of 3, approves a budget of up to $20,000 for the visit program, subject to because we don't want to end up in a situation where it's, $22,000 and oh my God, we can't do it. So I'm trying to find just a bit of wriggle room so we can actually say, with contingencies to be decided by the committee, should it be any more than $20,000. So that gives us the opportunity to say yes or no. Does that work? Civic support, something like that?
Okay, so
Did you-
everybody's happy.
Yep. Yep, moving second. Councillor Stanton.
Through to the mover of the current wording, would the mover consider amending point 3 to say that the budget of up to 20,000 is for the sister city visit program at large, as opposed to specifying it for one city?
I've come to, I think what we've got here is quite reasonable, and it does give the committee a chance to relook at it if it's any more than the 20. So I think I would like the move, as the mover, I'd like to leave it there.
Right. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you.
The final one is the 2638, the Woy Master Plan outcomes of the public exhibition. And I think Councillor Neal, I'd like to move, Councillor Neal, you had a couple of things you wanted to mention, I think.
Councillor Neal, are you seconded?
I'm actually formally moving the recommendation with the amendment which I have circulated at our last meeting. That amendment is quite minor. It's in relation to recommendation 3A, which deletes the words 3 lanes and if practical. The effect of this amendment is to ensure that the western boat ramp is upgraded to 4 lanes rather than just 3. For those who had followed the draft Woy Foreshore Master Plan, and for those who are in the ward, they may well be aware that one of the greatest controversy has been the closure of the eastern ramp for those who have boats and who do a lot of fishing. This is an area that's extremely busy. There are large numbers of boats parked there, and often many boats that are actually queued up to try and get out into the water. And there's been extreme concern by the community of any reduction in this access. Beg your pardon? The closure of the eastern ramp was required and I think reasonably recommended by the staff on the basis that there was a conflict between boats that were loading there and the community walking and cycling, and I accept that that was quite a valid reason and quite reasonable. But I did take on board the strong feelings of the community that to reduce their access to a boat ramp would make it very difficult for them to recreate using their boats and fishing. So I think this is a very small change. I did ask the acting director at the time, who indicated that the cost of increasing by 1 ramp was essentially marginal. That being the case, I strongly support the proposition of making it 4 ramps from the western boat ramp once upgraded, and urge all councillors to support it and to support their community down on the peninsula.
Thanks, Councillor Neal. And Councillor Smith seconded that. Councillor Wright.
Just a question, it would be remiss of me not to ask. I'm not against upgrading the boat ramp by any means, but I just wanted to check to potentially the director, the CEO or Councillor Neal, when we talk about minimal costs upgrading the boat ramp, can we get a bit more of a concrete costing on that? Because as someone who's just been through the process, yeah, pardon the pun, concrete, more of a concrete understanding of what that might actually look like? Because as someone who's just been through this process in another boat ramp, it can be quite expensive.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We haven't actually done the detailed design of the boat ramp, so that would actually come next. But when we do it, we're going to have to put down pylons into the ground. So separating those pylons and having a slab, you're not going to have too many more pylons to knock into the ground. Your slab might be a little bit thicker to hold the extra weight of the boat, but you're only going from probably 6 metres to an 8 metre one to turn it from 1 to 2. So while it is more expensive, it's marginally. It's not like building one from scratch. If you were to build one lane here and another lane somewhere else, you're probably doing, I don't know, an extra 50, 60% saving doing them together than if you're doing them two separately.
Councillor Daniels.
Thank you. I remember looking at the plans when we were in the committee, and I'm not at all opposed to the 4 lanes. I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't think the costing would be overly too much. My main concern was that the design hasn't been done for it, and the people driving in and reversing boat trailers and all that sort of thing. Is there enough room for it? Like, should we wait for a design to come back and make sure that it is feasible first? I do like that we put into the comments that if practical, I think that is an important part, because I think we do need to come back with the design first and make sure it's okay.
Nobody else want to speak? All those in favour? All those, Councillor McKenna, Councillor Moreland, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Wald, Councillor Neal, Councillor
Mr.
Mont,
Mayor, can I
Councillor
just
Smith.
clarify what happened with Councillor Daniels' wording? She added the wording "if practical" and we're now voting on it.
I've called it. I've called it. Thank you. Other hands, sorry. Councillor Smith, Lamont, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. Against? Against? Yeah,
That means Councillor Neal's accepted. It's on the screen. Councillor Neal, debate's closed. It's on the screen.
It's closed. Yeah, she's right. Could we please, and that's my fault, I missed that. Re-put the vote.
Is that's with the mover and a second, Councillor Neal, Councillor Smith, you're happy with that wording? Yeah.
All right, put the motion on the screen. All those in favour? Councillor McKenna, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Mont, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. Against? Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, and Councillor Wright abstained. Carried.
Sorry. Can I just clarify to both to councillors and to the minute takers that we will, a mover and a seconder moves a motion. It is only changed either via an amendment or with the concurrence of the mover and the seconder. So when a councillor suggests a change, it doesn't get changed until the mover and the seconder agree. So if we can just be clear about that, so we shouldn't have things being adjusted on the screen unless the mover and the seconder concur. So if we can be really clear, both the mover and seconder, whether you accept or don't accept, and the minute staff don't adjust something unless the mover and the seconder agree. And if you are unhappy about that as a councillor, you move an amendment.
Next item on agenda is 3.8, deferred item, councillor expenses and facilities, July 25 to January 26. Do we have a mover? Councillor, all right, we just Councillor Stanton and Councillor Walsh.
What's happening?
We're dealing with council expenses.
Yep.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
No,
Yep.
I'm putting an amendment through.
Seconded.
Yeah.
Councillor Neil moved it. Councillor Millen second. Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If civic support can please help and just get my amendments up for this item.
Councillor Neil, Councillor Moreland was the seconder.
Thank you. Councillors, this amendment is about bringing some common sense back into how we report councillor activity. Yes, transparency matters, but what we're seeing in this report goes well beyond transparency. We're now publishing highly detailed and individualised statistics, requests, workshop attendance, hub clicks, as if they are a meaningful measure of performance. They're not. All this really does is create a scoreboard. And let's be honest, we already have one councillor keeping very close tabs on everyone's numbers anyway, and it's quite easy to go and ask them what the stats are. But this isn't good governance, because these figures don't tell the full story. They don't reflect the complexity of the casework, the depth of advocacy, or the realities across the different wards. They do not show quite clearly. What they do not show quite clearly is that engagement is uneven, but they do nothing to explain why. Worse still, publishing this level of individual detail risks encouraging performative behaviour, chasing numbers rather than focusing on meaningful outcomes for our communities. My amendment strikes the right balance. It keeps transparency through aggregated, de-identified reporting while removing the unnecessary misleading individual comparisons, particularly for workshops, briefings and committee attendance. Because this council should not be in the business of ranking councillors, it should be in the business of serving the community. Thank you. Huh?
Thanks, Councillor Lamont.
It's up there.
You got a seconder, Councillor Lamont? Councillor Smith.
It's number 5. Everyone's probably forgotten about it.
Any other discussion? You're happy to accept the amendment?
Mr Mayor, just a question for the CEO. Is there a reason that we report on those specific metrics at this stage? Is it a local government requirement? Is it from previous councils? Is there a reason we might use those and not other statistics?
Can provide some information. Yeah, you would need the seconder, which is...
Councillor Moreland, will you accept? Councillor Neil accepted the amendment, the change? No. You don't?
Let's listen to Councillor Mr Hock and then...
Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The categories of expenses and facilities paid to councillors that are reported are provided for in both the adopted policy and the Local Government Act. We report on the required heads of facilities provided to councillors.
So can I just clarify that? So you're saying that those statistics we collect are required by the local government? Is that what you're saying?
And the policy.
Are those statistics we're collecting required by the local government?
On councillor attendance at workshops and what have you? I believe so. For a detailed provision, I'll take the question on notice. If you don't collect the information, you'll be breaching your policy, which consequently is a breach of the Act as well.
So you need
If I can have 2 minutes of research time, I'll bring up the relevant provisions.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did think I was going to be helpful, but I might not be. So I did think the attendance records had become a requirement. I'm not sure. But I did just want to note that things like access to the hub, as Councillor Lamont said, are really meaningless statistics. And when I did raise that with the director quite a while ago, she very kindly pointed out that it was a resolution of the previous council and I voted for it. But I don't, I think that was one of those go with the flow votes, but I don't think things like accessing the hub are useful. As I think the staff know, I use my own computer and I download stuff from the hub to read it. So accessing the hub is meaningless in that context. I think there are a number of other stats that are provided that are a little bit meaningless. I know councillor request is a nice stat and it says something, but it doesn't really reflect whether councillors are serving their community or not. It just reflects the number of times you put in a councillor request. Mr Mayor, I would encourage councillors to support this. I mean, if it's necessary to put some kind of proviso on it that says any legislated required statistics should be retained, I would think that certainly the access to the hub and the councillor request is a meaningless figure. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Can I just make a suggestion that if we can just lay this on the table at the moment so that the staff member... Seconder, Councillor McQuaid. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. So, thanks for that, and it will come back to us.
Can we get the two councillors back, please?
Next item, agenda is 3.4, deferred item Land and Environment Court Appeals Working Group Terms of Reference for Adoption. Do I have a mover? Councillor McNamara, seconder. Councillor Mullen, thank you.
I'll move an amendment.
This is on the
Who moved it? Oh. No, whoever moves it gets to speak. But no, she can't move an amendment until the speaker's introduced it. So if he doesn't want to speak, then she can go straight to the amendment.
Councillor McNamara, would you want to speak? No. Councillor Lamont?
I am moving an amendment.
It's Councillor Smith.
Oh, Councillor Smith. Sorry, Councillor Lamont. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My amendment is that this matter, the council refers the proposed working group and proposed terms of reference to ARIC for their comments regarding probity, governance and risk management, please. So sorry, I don't think I've given that to staff. So council refers the proposed working group and proposed terms of reference to ARIC for their comments regarding probity, governance and risk management.
Is that in replacement of the...
Yes, that's replacing the other motion. So if I have a seconder.
Yeah, a seconder for Councillor Smith, Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I continue to be extremely concerned about this move by, originally by Councillor Eaton, to establish a committee, and initially without any terms of reference, to interfere in council's legal proceedings, in my view. I think it is really concerning. It is not clear to me, and I don't really think the draft terms of reference helped me really understand how this committee would not be interfering in council's operational matters. I understand that some councillors have expressed concern about the amount of money that is spent in legal proceedings. The Director has previously indicated that it is not all planning issues that we find ourselves dealing with in a legal sense. So it does really raise questions about probity. And I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who can answer it since the original mover is not here. But my question is, would the committee, proposed committee, have the ability to recommend that council not contest or defend a matter? Could I ask through you to the CEO, is that your understanding, Mr. Farmer, that the committee could recommend that council not contest or defend a matter, but instead settle in order to save money?
I might hand that to Mr. Nichols.
Through Mr. Mayor, my reading of the terms of reference is that it wouldn't be able to instruct staff about strategy or tactics or approaches to different legal matters. So I would have read it as being that could not be something that committee could do.
Councillor Walsh, could you please put your buzzer off? Thanks.
Could I just ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO or to the Director, could you just walk us through what the committee would actually do? Yeah. Like if I was on this committee and I turned up to a meeting, what would the agenda look like and what would we discuss? Is there any sense of what that might be?
Through Mr. Mayor, I may ask Mr. Hock to answer that question, if he could come up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The terms of reference have been developed with reference to an earlier resolution of council. This is not a council officer initiative. It is somewhat unclear what advice or strategic positions this working group would provide, except in the context of the legal expenditure in the last financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Mr. Hock may be doing his best to answer that question, but it's not really an answer with respect. So if I turned up to this committee and we were in court on a water damage to a local creek, what would we talk about? Or if the EPA was taking us to court, what would we talk about?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor, my understanding is the terms of reference specifically exclude the ability to talk about cases. So I wouldn't have thought it would be appropriate for the committee to talk about any case in particular or give any instructions about any case in particular.
So then what would we talk about? Can anybody answer that question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor, I mean, lots of things you could talk about, so we're not aware, it's not a council staff resolution that we proposed. It was initiated by councillors, but so it would really be up to the committee for what they wanted to talk about within the terms of reference. But the terms of reference are clear that they can't give us to have instructions about operational matters, about legal court cases.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one further question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the CEO. How much would it cost to have this committee operating? What would be the resourcing, the staffing, the time, the minute taking? Probably not much, but what would it be?
I'd have to take that on notice, but it would be similar to what a conventional standing committee would cost.
Did we get a figure?
I just got given 10. I don't know whether that's $10 or 10,000 or each meeting would cost, you know, a few $1,000s.
All right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Then I'll stand by my amendment, please.
Councillor McNamara and Councillor Mullen, do you accept the amendment? No. No. Okay, Councillor Lamont.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to find out what gaps in the processes and the way we do things this committee is actually supposed to be filling. Because unless we can identify the gaps that are there that we're trying to actually fill, I can't see the point of having the committee. So through you, Mr Mayor, can someone attempt answering that question, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, it's really up to councillors what you want. The terms of reference outline what staff would recommend that the committee could do, and it needs to work within those terms of reference.
Thank you. Director Nichols, one more question. How are we going to actually measure the success of this committee? Like, what are we obviously going to be spending a lot of money on it, but how are we going to figure out that we're actually achieving something by actually having this committee in place? Through you, Mr Mayor.
I think staff have made clear this is an initiative that's come from the floor of council and you're not asking the right people.
Not really.
How rude. You ask a question, don't want an answer.
I'll actually ask.
Can I Councillor Lamont asked a question. I then said I was happy to answer it, and then she said, when I asked if I could have the microphone, she said, not really. So this whole idea is that a key issue for us is, can you please not talk over me, Councillor Lamont? The whole idea is being set up, and it's not even me putting it forward. The basic idea of any committee that you can read from this terms of reference is that we want to get DA numbers down. So a direct success rate of this is how are we getting DAs approved, and for Land Environment Court matters, how are we actually going in terms of cost? Because the costs are expensive and ratepayers deserve to know that transparency.
Councillor Lamont.
Since Councillor Wright wants to answer questions, can he answer this one? Does he know what the meeting is going to look like?
Councillor Lamont, for your buzzer.
It's in the terms of reference.
Right, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Walsh, as you want to speak, you had your buzzer on before.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I do want to speak, but I also will wait for the vote on the amendment.
Okay. So, any others? So at the moment, we've got the amendment from Councillor Smith and Councillor Lamont. No other discussion, so we'll vote for the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid, Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels is 7-all, and I'll use my casting vote to go against the amendment. So the motion.
Can I suggest, Mr Mayor, can I suggest another amendment? If we're not going to take it to ARIC, can we get some legal advice on the terms of reference?
Have we got a seconder for Councillor Lamont? Councillor McGregor.
So if we can just, pretty much what we had before would be ARIC.
You want to speak to Councillor Lamont?
Sorry?
Would you like to speak to it?
Not really. I've just had some questions, but I think we need some further advice on what we're doing here, because I think we're blurring the line between operational and governance oversight that we're supposed to have. And I just don't think the controls are in place and that we fully understand what we're actually taking on here by having this committee. And I think we just need further legal advice before we waste any more time or money on it.
Any other discussion? Nope. So putting Councillor Lamont's or Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't stand, if that's okay. So I will speak for this amendment, and essentially it is also speaking against the original motion. But for me, instead of addressing why the legal costs are so high, this particular setup is one of closed-door councillor working group, and it does risk political interference, inactive legal matters, and ultimately undermines proper governance. So the Land and Environment Court cases should be handled by qualified staff and legal experts, and that's not to say that that's not already happening within council, but improving the capacity, supporting the internal mechanisms that work on these matters might be a better suggestion. Not a sort of select group of councillors, which I acknowledge at the moment I'm one of, with privileged access here. So if we're really serious about reducing costs, we should fix the root causes, better planning decisions, and strengthen our internal capability, strengthen and support the staff that are already working on these matters, and not actually create another layer of bureaucracy.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, I'm just following up on these questions, if I may. I'm just looking at the terms of reference. It's been a while since I've read it. So it says, can I, again, through you, Mr Mayor, perhaps to Councillor McNamara or Councillor Wright, since they seem to be quite keen on this and have a sense of what this committee is. It says the purpose is to provide advice and recommendations to council on the community's expectations in council's participation in planning appeals in the Land and Environment Court, including but not limited to the expenditure of operational funds. So through you, Mr Mayor, could I just get some clarification from either Councillor McNamara or Councillor Wright what their expectation is in terms of what that means? Again, if I turned up to a committee meeting, what would that mean in terms of the agenda? What would I be looking at? What would I be talking about? What would I be recommending?
Again, you said it, these are terms of reference. One of the issues I think I've got here is that the original motion, I think, went through unanimously, and Councillor Walsh seconded it. With all of that information, and now we have the terms of reference. I think this originally came from the numbers that were being reported in the Planning and Environment Committee, and the need to have a look at what was happening, not only why companies were going to the Land and Environment Court, but also the fact that the DA should have been done quicker. So it's in the terms of reference. I would say come along to the meetings, bring in the information that you're going to hear, and see what happens. I don't think all councillors are invited along to the meetings just like every other committee. But $3 million expenditure. One of the first things my contacts in the community asked was, why are we spending so much? Now, if we can get to the bottom of that and have the DAs approved in time and not getting to the Land and Environment Committee, that would be great. So I would just say, come along to the meetings, and you will hear and ask whatever questions you want.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to Councillor McNamara, you are accurate regarding the original motion, and I will do something that maybe some others are not necessarily comfortable admitting here in the chamber, but I'm happy to admit that I believe I erred on that evening, and I in fact will be asking to be withdrawn from that committee. I took the opportunity after the original motion had come up, doing more research and doing more reading. This is not a committee that I'm at all comfortable with, and so I made a mistake.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Lamont.
Mr Mayor, through you, can we find out like the breakup of what I think the CEO's actually mentioned before, but how much we're looking at in the Land Environment Court or any other court that we're actually thinking that we can actually solve or, remove, or I think it'd be good to know what we're actually dealing with and trying to save money on.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can't remember the breakup, councillor, but the $3 million that was quoted was significant other legal costs that council had well beyond the Land Environment Court. That said, there is a significant number of matters being, DAs being appealed in the Land Environment Court, so it is a significant issue for us. We've got a number of deemed refusals, which is where we haven't been able to assess the application within a certain time, and then it's appealed before we've assessed it. And then we have other ones where we've refused applications and it's being appealed to the court. So where possible in the Land Environment Court, we participate in the mediation processes of the court, which can significantly reduce the overall costs if you don't go to hearing. But in a number of cases, that's not possible to come to an agreement. But I just clarify, the $3 million is not all Land Environment Court matters.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Through you, Mr Mayor, just on that, the issues with deemed refusals, do they really need a working group to sort of assess that we might be able to remove that aspect of legal fees? Like, is there anything else that can be done in one of the other committees that could address that part, rather than having a separate working group?
Through Mr Mayor, up to councillors about the working groups, but on the deemed refusals, it is definitely a focus to determine DAs in the appropriate times, so that at least it gets to a determination as a people, instead of people going to court thinking it's a better approval pathway. What happens in reality, it just has significant costs for applicants as well as council, and it's significantly more costly and takes a lot longer for all parties. So we definitely discourage it, but it is something that does still happen.
Okay, thank you. What I'm getting at is, do we really need a working group to look at that? Could it go to the Environment and Planning Committee instead? I mean, they deal with DAs and stuff like that. Could we just look at that there instead of setting up this working group?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that would be up to you, councillors. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, just a further question through you to the CEO. Again, this really concerns me, as I think it's obvious. Mr CEO, and I'm not saying this committee is going to do this, but would it be lawful for councillors to interfere with council's legal processes?
It would be interfering in operational matters if they dealt with a specific development application or gave instruction to staff.
Okay, so the purpose of this committee is to make recommendations on participation in planning appeals in the Land and Environment Court, including but not limited to the expenditure of funds. Could that be interpreted as interfering in legal proceedings? Look, I'm actually not trying to do a gotcha moment. I guess what I'm saying is that I am really concerned this is borderline in terms of what should legally be coming before council. I would really hope that as the most senior staff member, there might be consideration of giving advice to council, that we do get legal advice around this matter. Obviously, that's a matter for yourself, Mr Farmer, but it concerns me that deeply that this is so borderline, it puts council in pretty dangerous territory. Thank you.
Put the amendment of Councillor Lamont and McGregor. Councillor McGregor. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Mont, Councillor Neal, Councillor Smith. Against the amendment, Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Stanton, Councillor McQuaid. I'll use my casting vote against the amendment, so it's lost. All those in favour of the motion? The motion of Councillor McNamara and Councillor Mullen.
Which is that council adopts the terms of reference for the Land Environment Court Appeals Working Group at attachment 1.
Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Walsh.
I need to ask a question, Mr Mayor. I need to ask it, before we vote on this, I need to ask a question.
We've put it, it's too late.
But if this, it's regarding, if this is the moment that I withdraw from that group, or if that's another motion I need to bring.
That's another motion,
Okay.
I would say. Yeah, it's another motion. Sorry, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. All those against? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. 7 all, and I'll use my casting vote to support the motion, so motion is passed.
As councillors, engage a solicitor or a legal professional to provide us advice on matters like this? I'm just asking a question.
You can, at your expense, you'd need a resolution of council.
What was that, sorry?
You need a resolution of council.
So there's, as councillors, we can't actually ask for advice.
Council can.
Councillor Wright,
I'm waiting to move the next motion.
all right, thank you. Oh, we'll go to this one now. Item 3.3, deferred item, draft memorials in public place policy for adoption. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a policy that we have spoken about previously for a range of reasons, both at the committee and here on the floor of council. I wanted to move an amendment tonight to move it back to the committee for the pure purpose of getting a better understanding and proposing some potential amendments to the policy that specifically relate to the memorials in public place where they are the memorial trees. There are a number of memorial trees in certain suburbs that I've had community members express feedback with me, and council, to their credit, has started the process of working with those individual community groups and those individual community members that reside near those memorial trees to look through some of those issues in terms of potential relocation. By moving this back to the committee, we can get an understanding of when that will occur and what that looks like. And also, I want to get a bit more of an understanding about the utilisation rates of these memorial trees. They are quite expensive to implement, and what the community often sees are the trees in a public space, and the utilisation of the memorial trees are very much visible. So you can see who's purchased the individual leaflets. At Avoca Beach, for example, I don't think many have been purchased. So before we were going to plant more of them being concrete trees, I'd like to get a bit more of an understanding on that.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Can I have a seconder? Can I have a seconder for Councillor Wright while we're looking? Councillor Millen, thanks. Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions to Councillor Wright. If what he's proposing should potentially actually be a rescission motion of the original motion around this, and the next question about the kinds of, the volume of those in the community that have complained to him about this. I have had one person speak in a not so positive way about the memorial trees. I've had a number who've spoken really positively. So I'd just like to get an idea of the numbers that he's had approach him, and also if there have been any community members who, if I could just finish, if there have been any community members who have expressed their approval of the approach. So thank you.
Councillor Smith, can you?
I don't want to lose my spot.
I've got you in order. I've got it. You're next, Councillor Smith. Councillor Crowley, can you turn off your buzzer?
So the volume, I would have to say, particularly the one in Avoca, I've probably had 15 to 20, both through the community association. This has been a standing item at the last 2 community association meetings, which I've attended, and also I've met with one group of local residents there on site, and I know that that community group, being the Avoca Beach Community Association, has had a few conversations with council about that, and potentially that is the tree I was referencing that's going to be relocated. So in an ideal world, that would be relocated from Hunter Park up to the new Warren Avenue lookout. The community is very supportive of that change. It's a brand new lookout that's going to be fantastic. Can't wait for it for the end of financial year. And the community is very happy to have that there. And I've also had comments online when I've spoken about this. There's also been articles in the local paper about these trees. When I've had those conversations with people, they've queried the cost benefit of them in other suburbs, being Carryong. I think there might be one at Tukley, if I'm not mistaken, Councillor Moreland, we spoke about once before, and maybe not, but trying to get understanding of all of those. So, and as for the rescission question, that's a matter for the chair, but I would see it as a standard council process.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd actually like to move an amendment, please, and the staff do have it from the last meeting. And once that's up, I'll speak to it. And Councillor Wright, I'm happy to incorporate the point that you're trying to make, I think, once that amendment is up.
Can I have a seconder for Councillor Smith's
that's
amendment?
Not the one, I don't think. Yes, that might be the one. So if I have a seconder, I'll just explain the amendment.
Can I have a seconder for Councillor Smith?
Can you second?
Councillor Wright.
Mr Mayor, so it has been a little while since I read the policy, and I know staff did work and there was consultation. I can remember reading the consultation. I suppose the part that I am not supportive of is removing the ability of people to have a seat or a real tree dedicated for in memoriam. I understand, absolutely understand that there are concerns about that process, there are concerns about how many, there are concerns about all of that. But I would have to say I see it as a small thing to allow people to do that at their own cost if it's relatively inconspicuous and can actually in some ways be useful to council. So what this amendment does is it puts back or puts into the policy the ability of people to request to put a plaque or plant a tree and have a small plaque in memoriam or as a draft memorial. But the way I would envisage it working is that council identifies where there is that opportunity. Where are those parks? Where are those areas where we want to put seats, where we want to plant trees, where we might want to have picnic tables? And that there is a list of those on our website that if somebody does want to have one, dedicate one as a memorial, that they do fund it, that council, there is a cost to the installation or to providing that, and they may have a small plaque at their own cost. I suppose, Mr Mayor, when I go to places like Baddow Bay or Avoca, I occasionally do see those benches with plaques on them. I'd have to say I don't know who those people are, and I mean that with great respect, but it does give me some level of pause just to think about a person has been honoured, a person has been missed, that person lived, that the family and friends have felt strongly about some display in memoriam of that person. It's not intrusive. It doesn't, as far as I'm aware, cause grief to anybody else. So I don't see the need to remove that from our practice. I understand that it means some additional work for staff, and I apologise for that, but I think it has meaning for people within our community that want to do it, and it is at their own expense. We can put in place processes that say that, look, this is something that we accept, that we approve for a period of 20 years, but council carries no liability. We're not going to renew it. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We can put provisos around it. I just think it is a small thing. It is a very small thing that if people want to do that they can look at the website, they can say, at Baddo Bay, council's looking for a few more chairs over there. I'm willing to fund it and put a small plaque on it to say that it's in memory of my mum, my dad, my brother, my sister, my friend, whoever it is, to acknowledge they existed, that they lived in this world, and it's a small thing that brings some comfort. In terms of the memorial trees, Councillor Wright, I wasn't completely clear about your point, but I think it basically was that the local association wanted it relocated. I'd be happy to incorporate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Crowley. Or Councillor McGregor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll remain seated if you don't mind. Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask the Acting Director, Jeanette Williams, to explain to people here, she's the author of these policies, and my feeling about the policies were that they were very, very well written policies, and that they were also very thoughtful and caring of the people that they were designed to be for. So could you just explain, please, if you can?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the memorial policy for valued citizens and community members. The policy I think you might be referring to, Councillor Crawley, is the roadside tribute policy, which is further down the list for tonight. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to speak to sorry to sit my leg on the draw. Happy to speak to this, and I actually agree with a lot of what Councillor Smith has said, and I think there's probably a way that we can merge the two together. To give some context as well as an example on the public furniture, I think it's a very good idea, and I'll give you an example. So in, I think it was 2015, there was a gentleman from Avoca Beach who was defending the people of Sydney at the Lint Cafe in Sydney CBD, who was tragically shot and killed in the line of duty, whose family has been working with him for the past 10 years to get a memorial bench for him at Avoca Beach. It is a place that gentleman had a lot of time growing up with his family, and he spent there with his friends. It means a lot to that family. So I think that is important, and I think that definitely should be included. My caveat to identifying areas where there is a need is I don't necessarily know if we can treat these bespoke cases like a shopping list of locations, for example, because if we think about the case of Luca Bennett, who we did the memorial for on the rock platform at North Avoca Beach last year, it's a very bespoke location that meant a lot to himself and his family. It's not a location that they could have seen coming. His family never would have expected they'd be in that position. So I think by having a set of locations where council says, hey, you could have this, it might not be fitting for the bespoke needs of that individual, because often these ideas for policy, these ideas for memorials come up from tragic circumstances of which you often can't predict the location of. So perhaps I agree with a lot of this, perhaps I'm thinking if Councillor Smith is amenable, we could defer the whole matter back to the committee, and then as a committee, and I'm not a member of that committee, but I'm happy to attend the next meeting, and perhaps we can flesh out a policy that articulates the 4 points you've got here and the 2 that I moved. And I think the next Community and Culture meeting is next month, so we wouldn't have to wait too long, if you're okay with that.
The need to, but I won't object to it if that is the preference and if the committee chair believes that would be the best course forward. Is it the Community and Culture? Yeah.
Councillor McGregor.
Oh, does he want to respond
Oh, yeah.
from her first? Or?
Could you put your buzzer off? Councillor Castles, or you? Councillor Wright.
In terms of the matter coming, obviously, if it's supported tonight, coming back to the Community and Culture Committee, obviously we will deal with that. I do have some concerns. I feel that this particular item, where are we? The draft memorials in public place for adoption, it's been going around in circles for quite some time now. It has come back to us tonight for adoption. I mean, obviously we can amend, etc., which is what people are doing here. But I do have some concerns because this community have obviously already put in some submissions about this. They've responded when it's been out on public exhibition. And again, this situation with with the committees and some of the decisions that are made, we're now going around and around in another circle. Now, obviously, if it comes back to the committee, we will deal with it on its merits, and we will, do the right thing by taking it with the seriousness it deserves. But I do think we need to do a bit of thinking about how many times we want things going round in circles. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I rise to make the following points. The first one is that this is an issue which should be treated with some sensitivity, given the content of the policy. The second one, obviously already raised by Councillor Castles there, is that this has already gone out to community consultation. It's already gone through significant work internally with staff and with the committee. I don't really see any point in sending it back to the committee again. If people want to alter the policy, now's the time to do it. I would like to also raise the point that, yet again, community consultation has come back with feedback that was inconvenient for some, so we're now seeking to change the policy, not based on what the majority of people on the entire of the Central Coast think, but it's again being, transformed into something else because of a particular set of issues, which is not to downplay their importance, but this is not the right mechanism or the right way to do it. You've already got a policy which has had significant work put onto it. It's gone out, had consultation, which does actually accrue budget, whether you like it or not. So every time you keep pushing these things backwards and forwards, you're wasting more time and money. Given the sensitivities of dealing around something with memorials, do we really want to keep putting these families for this and delaying it and reminding them yet again of bureaucratic, insouciance when we're dealing with a memorial to their loved ones? So, councillors, I would encourage you to just simply adopt the policy, noting that it's gone through the formal process. It's not a new process, it's one that the council and every other council in New South Wales or the country does indeed with these types of things. If you have specific amendments that wish to be made, now's the time to do it on the floor of council. It's not to send it back to the committee again. And then if it does go back to the committee again, are we going to bother doing community consultation again with the changes that are made? Or are we just going to do it through a committee and then try and sneak it in here through stealth and ignore and silence all the people who did bother to go through the appropriate process to put through their views on the policy and then have that assessed and amended and augmented as appropriate by staff through the official process? So not only is there a duplication of resources, there's a duplication of grief, there's a stymieing of the wishes of the families of those who have lost people to memorialise them. And I don't really think that a policy of this importance is being shown the importance it deserves through having people chop and change come in and try and, you know, hijack it at the last minute because they've got a couple of issues in their ward with one progress association. It's just not the way that decisions should be made. We're supposed to be making decisions on a broad strategic level for a region and not holding that up or not spitting in the face of all of those who have contributed to this over the inordinate amount of time that's got into it just because there's some personal agendas that want to be followed through with. So I encourage people to vote for the original staff recommendation.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just clarify to the councillors and the speakers in particular that my recollection of the feedback is that the feedback was not all one way. There was quite a diverse range of views, including about the removal of the ability for furniture or real trees. So it wasn't as if certainly the changes I'm putting up fly in the face of the feedback. My recollection, and I'm happy for staff to correct me or to provide further information, I can't remember, there might have been in the order of 20 maybe, 14 submissions, and I think of those 14 submissions, and I can't remember numbers, but there was a diverse range of views. It was not all, we support this, there were views that were diverse about the removal of that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, look, I would almost encourage Councillor McGregor to withdraw that because you can't call councillors out for spitting in the face of families when what the policy does is actually not what the people in the public consultation wanted. Those people in the public consultation wanted these bespoke arrangements, acknowledging that they're bespoke. So I'll actually ask him to withdraw that comment. And I don't think I landed anywhere with Councillor Smith, so what I will do is vote against the amendment, and then if it's lost, I will move a further amendment to the original motion.
All right, so
Send it back to the committee for
Councillor
further
McGregor,
assessment.
are you going to retract what you said? No, I thought that would be a no. Just thought I'd ask.
Just the part where you said this, yeah, sure, Councillor McGregor, I'll spell it out for you. The part where you said this debate spat in the face of the people of the community who gave feedback on the policy, because that, yeah, the language.
Right. Come on, we'll move.
Okay,
move
so...
on. So
Were you
we're
happy
voting
to-
on the amendment.
I'm happy to accept Councillor Wright's intention, so I would be happy to...
Do you want the mic?
Me to do this? Yep. I would happy to just amend that council refer this matter back to the Community and Culture Committee. I'm not happy about it, but I can see the merit. Noting the following proposed changes to the policy so that they specifically get discussed. And also, yeah, are you happy with that, Councillor Wright?
With those changes, all those in favour of the amendment? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. All those against? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh. The amendment's carried. Now the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels.
Yeah.
Here it becomes a motion. Councillor Smith, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. Against? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh. That's it. And the motion's carried. Thank you. So before we go on to the next item, we will kind of a motion to lift the 3.8 off the table. Kind of a motion. I can have a seconder. Councillor McQuaid, I'll put it. And all those in favour of lifting it off the table? Councillor Smith, are you get your hands up? Yep. Unanimous. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh and Councillor Stanton. Yes, yes, please. And Mr. Hock will be in a position to provide comprehensive advice.
Yes, is it amendment? Oh.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the question was regarding the provisions of the Local Government Act and the policy that require specific individualised reporting. Section 252 of the Local Government Act requires council's facilities and expenses policy to comply with the local government regulations and any Section 23 A guidelines issued by the OLG. The regs and the Section 23 A guidelines issued by OLG include provision of detailed and individualised reporting per councillor in the annual report. These reports correspond with those requirements in the annual report. Our policy at clause 16.2 requires detailed and individualised reporting per councillor, and the resolution from the council in 2020, which I'm thankful to Councillor Smith for identifying, which was in the report, identified specific heads of reporting categories that this report now does.
I had the call, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wright.
Got the red light on. I will speak to this motion and stand for it out of respect.
This is to the amendment.
Yeah, so I'll speak, well, against the amendment, noting... We'll find out, won't we? But I still wanted to speak. So, look, I understand the intention here, and look, I think it's important that all councillors look at the OLG advice before putting any amendments forward. So noting that, I'll be voting against it. However, I would be happy to remove the requirement for statistics around the hub, because out of all the documents I can see, as Councillor Smith said, it's not really a fair assessment of the work someone is doing in reading documents, because a lot of councillors preface reading it off the website. So I'd be happy to see that removed. Otherwise, I'll be voting against the amendment.
Councillor Castles?
Yeah, just to clarify, following on from Councillor Wright, Mr. Hock has just been obviously up there speaking, explaining a few things to us. I got the impression, and perhaps I could seek some clarification through you to Mr. Hock, is that the way we are currently, I guess, reporting and the statistics, etc., that we see is aligned with OLG and the Local Government Act. Does that mean that if the issue that Councillor Wright just raised about the hub, does that mean that we can remove this or we can't remove this? In terms of the amount of detail, I'm not clear.
It doesn't align, it aligns with the Act but not the policy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reporting on use of the hub aligns with the resolution of council in 2020. It's not a requirement from the OLG. Other categories do align. So we have a hybrid reporting situation that goes beyond the OLG requirements, but responds to an earlier resolution of council.
Councillor Neal?
Just bearing in mind the advice we received, there's obviously a lack of correlation between strictly the Local Government Act and the policy. The only thing that really we could alter and still be in alignment with the regulation, the Local Government Act, is the reporting of access to the hub. But we would have to amend our policy prior to doing that to not be in conflict with the resolution of council. So if you wanted to do that, frankly, it seems a fairly trivial matter if we're going to leave everything else, but we could, in theory, they actually are not included in the policy, so you think you could change them, is my understanding. Is that confirmed by your advice? So, sorry, the question was whether requests by councillors, you know, the request for information could be deleted and still comply with both the policy and the Local Government Act. my understanding if that's correct, but you may wish to confirm that.
The obligation to report on use of the councillor information request system formed part of our reporting under the performance improvement order. That performance improvement order has expired but has not formally been lifted.
What?
The requirement to
Is that correct?
report on
You're on
information
parole.
requests is part of your policy. You're entitled to change your policy as you see fit.
I think bearing in mind that advice and the minute changes we're able to make still in compliance, that it might be advisable to adopt this, and then if you wish to refer it back for a review of that policy to see whether we still require it. Is that acceptable to the original movers? Well, the thing is that there's certain payments that are being held up by this report, and that if we defer it could be some months. I suppose I would have thought that it would be fairer to adopt the report and then go back and review the policy in due course, because it could take some time.
Councillor McGregor.
Thank you. The question that I've got here is there's a lot of reference to the hub, but we've been moving away from the hub to docs on tap. And I'm just curious how that change with some of the software we're using is likely to be reflected or not likely to be reflected with this, if this resolution is successful, or in the event that it isn't, with the current state of play as it is. Is there someone that could respond to that?
There will still be a council request system and an advice system, so we would be able to get that data. Ultimately, that's a decision and a policy position of council is the hub. It was, as Mr. Hock identified, it was an issue that was identified under the performance improvement order, which is in a funny limbo situation where it's expired but not yet officially been lifted, which is an unusual situation. But we would still be able to extract data that provided basically the same information if that was a policy position of council. Currently, it is the policy position of council.
So if the policy doesn't change, in the docs on tap will still be covered by the hub access statistics, but just under a different name.
And a revised portal, which we'll be bringing in for you, will do the same thing.
Yeah, understood. All right, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, just because it's been mentioned a couple of times, can we get some clarification about the performance improvement order? I'm just trying to look at the legislation, and it isn't clear about anything really in terms of the time frame or whether it continues beyond the time frame. Could you clarify that, please, Mr Farrell?
Nothing is very clear, but the period under review still was a period where the performance indicator, a performance improvement order was under in force. So the time of this current report contains a period in which the performance improvement order was underway. So if we just deal with that. Second one, it has expired. Time expired has occurred. I know the Office of Local Government have been seeking information to be able that the Minister wanted to officially lift it or not lift it, and we still haven't provided any advice as to that. But our advice is that effectively we're operating as we believe it has been. It's not enforced, but technically we haven't been advised that the Minister has lifted it.
So could we add a part 6 here and write to the Minister asking him for clarification and to lift the performance improvement order?
The council could do what it wishes.
Well, it's yours and my amendment. Could we add that part? That
To find out, yeah.
Well, that council, that the CEO write to the Minister for Local Government requesting clarification about the current status of the performance improvement order, noting that the period in force has expired and requesting the PIO be lifted. Current status of the PIO, noting that the period in force has expired and requesting that the PIO be lifted. Just hold on. Yeah, so we can make it 5.
Maybe you add formally before lifted?
Yep, so where are you suggesting formally?
Before lifted, at the end.
Yeah. And look, I will just say, I'm not sure that, in theory, one could say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter until it does. And so I think it would be better to request the minister to lift it if there's no reason for it to be in force. Sorry, Councillor Lamont, you had...
Mr Mayor, if we can just withdraw Amendment 5, because I think I'll deal with it separately as a notice of motion in the future. Please.
What was that again, Councillor Lamont?
Delete 5, and I'll just deal with that as a motion in the future.
So we just clarify the minute clerk, yeah, perfect. Councillor Smith, do you support that? Yeah.
So Councillor Neil and Councillor Milland, are you happy with the amendment? Yeah. Councillor Milland?
Can we put the motion? I think we all agree.
Councillor Wright?
Was the movers were...
This is the amendment.
Yeah. Was Neil and Mooland was the movers of the original motion?
Yes. Are you happy, John? Okay.
No, Mr Mayor, I won't be accepting that.
You won't be. Councillor Neil, you'll accept that? Oh, no, I'm just...
Move the original motion.
Yeah, we're just asking if the changes. Yeah. All right. No, you're not accepting, Councillor Milland?
He's not accepting, so it doesn't. So
No, we've got an amendment, we've got a motion. Yeah. Right, all those, Councillor McGregor?
I'm just wondering, this point 5, which has come out of the ether based on some of the commentary tonight, if it should be done as a separate motion rather than as part of this, because we've gone from talking about councillor expenses to talking about a performance improvement order that everyone thought wasn't in effect anymore, and now we're seeing if it is. So I'm just not quite sure this is the right time in the meeting for this to be included as an addendum to the councillor expenses report.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor.
Mr Mayor, I would think that it was reasonable that it go through with this, since we have been talking about councillor performance in various terms, and in order to save time and another notice of motion, if it can go through with this, I think that would be efficient.
All right, so we're voting on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? The one on the screen. Yeah, which Councillor Milland never accepted. So this is the amendment of Councillor Lamont and Councillor Smith. Is the amendment? Yes. No.
No, let's be really clear. Councillor Lamont withdrew 5. Councillor, the staff recommendation is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You accepted that number 5 goes in and was included in the motion, but Councillor Mooland said no. So therefore we have a motion which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have an amendment which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you know what you're voting on.
Yeah. So this is on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? So Councillor McQuaid, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Wright, Councillor Smith, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Neil, Councillor McKenna. Against, Councillor Mooland, Councillor Daniels, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Stanton's out the room, so it's 10, so it's carried. It's carried. The amendment becomes a motion because Councillor Stanton's out. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor McKenna, Councillor McQuaid, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Wright, Councillor Smith, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Neal. All those against? Councillor Crowley, Councillor Castles, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Mulland. The motion's carried. Thank you. Yeah. 3.9. Next item, 3.9, deferred item, notice of motion, community concerns on PFAS issues in our catchment. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will just move a different motion, which I think I provided to the staff last time, if I could.
Can we just not advance too fast until we get our two stray councillors back?
Yep, no, that's fine. Quick, let's go to the vote. There's a different motion, isn't there? Yep, thank you.
Is somebody, I think Steph's away looking for probably even a cup of
They're
tea.
up there having dinner, aren't they?
Cup of tea and cream biscuit, I think.
No, no, that's a different one, I think.
Did you bring biscuits for us?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the motion is up on the screen. If I have a seconder, I will speak to that.
Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I put the original notice of motion up about PFAS in our catchment in response to a particular concern from some of the residents in the Arimba catchment. As councillors and the community know, that we have some elevated PFAS results, and council has stopped drawing from the Arimba Creek areas to avoid any problems. But there has been an issue in that we are aware, or the community is aware, or do extract water directly from the creek in the lower Arimba area. So that's what this motion was about originally. It was about forming a water user group of those residents that could then stay engaged on that issue. I thank the staff for the report that they provided, or the information they provided, particularly in the roles and responsibilities of council in relation to that water extraction from the creek. And I probably should have known some of that it is more the responsibility of DQ to take an interest in that water extraction. So I've amended this motion. The council requests DQ to facilitate a public meeting with those residents in the lower Arimba catchment and other relevant stakeholders, that we invite the EPA and New South Wales Health to be a part of that public meeting, and that we of course invite all of those residents. I think at this stage that is what the community wants. They want to be informed. I think they have felt that they have not been made aware of that issue directly. And so this is really just for council to play a role in trying to convene and request that DQ have that meeting. There is a part 3 which is about our web page and including a subscribe notification facility that those residents can get an automatic notification when updated water quality results are available. So I'm hoping this isn't controversial. I don't think it is controversial. We had the Mangrove Mountain Advisory Committee the other week. We had New South Wales Health present, and I did flag this with the presenters that we may look to having a public meeting. They seem quite amenable to participating in that. And then it's just a matter of getting the EPA and DQ in the room, which might not be quite as easy, but let's give it a go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I rise to support. I commend the motion to the floor. I commend the councillor for authorising it. It's a shame that it's taken us this long to get to the point where we can debate this because it's been deferred for some time now. But it's a positive initiative to work with other levels of government, but most importantly to have this community-centric motion, to have things out in public, to have the public meeting, but also to have the subscriber notification function, I think is an important thing. The PFAS issue is not going to go away. We need to confront it head on. I'd like to see us take a leadership role in that rather than just hiding behind, it's going to end up being the Department of Health that's in charge of it or something like that. We're here to make sure that we're advocating in the best interests of our residents and ratepayers. It's the people that live here whose long-term health is potentially under threat through PFAS. So we need to continue to monitor it, to be vigilant and to be open and honest with our communication with both the community and the state government agencies or the federal government agencies that are going to be involved in this. Council has a very important role to play as a conduit, not only for information but also for action on the issue. So as Councillor Smith said, I hope this isn't a controversial one. I'd like to see it go through unamended unless there's something that strengthens the resolution. But councillors of all stripes, I would encourage you to look at what's on the screen in front of you and to consider how we can come forward and work together on some of these issues like the PFAS one to really deliver for the residents and ratepayers in the region. So councillors, I commend the motion to the floor and its originator for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Martin Marler.
And I would also like to speak in favour of the motion as it is now and thank the CEO for your notes to the original motion. And I think that getting the Department of Climate Change, Energy and Environment and Water to facilitate it is exactly what we should be doing. And thanks for the information about the what did we call it there? The Water Authority responsibilities around this. So I commend the motion.
Thank you. No further debate. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item, agenda 3.10, deferred item, notice of motion addressing community concerns, trailer parking on RUN Drive in Hardy's Bay. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that in the CEO's response to the motion that staff agree that a meeting with the community can be organised, and so I hope that we can move forward with this. I want to say that the issue of the boat trailer parking down on Araluen Drive at Hardy's Bay really had become quite a dominating public issue, and one that residents were routinely raising about the way that the trailers, and I know that when the works on Araluen Drive were being done, everybody was so happy, extremely satisfied with the work, the resurfacing and so forth, the new road there, but were particularly excited about the fact that the boat trailers were moved so that those works could be carried out. Anxious as they started to see the boat trailers start to return, and prior to the roadworks, they really did congest, make Araluen Drive congested in terms of shared public space. Affected the access to the shops, it affected visitors, certainly affected small businesses. So, and I think many in the community were concerned, like through the community association there on that peninsula, that many were concerned that that they were at risk of being seen as being anti-boating, which you can't live in Hardys Bay, Wagstaff, Pretty Beach, Kilcare area and be anti-boating. That just makes no sense. But it is about basic fairness in terms of shared public space and shared public parking, and really the balance was very wrong. So, you know, I hope that that community and council staff have obviously worked extremely well together on the Hardys Bay Foreshore Master Plan. So I hope that by having a community meeting, the community can be listened to and heard, and some changes can be made as a outcome of this initial motion. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion? No. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item on agenda is 7.3, notice of motion, future leases for aviation services, Warnervale Airport. Councillor
Yes.
Castles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Is it coming up there? Yes, it is.
Can I have a
So I'd
second,
like to move.
Councillor Moreland.
Second.
Thank you.
I do have an amendment that I sent through to Civic Support, so perhaps that could be put onto the board. It's replaces item 4 and also includes an item or clause 5. Thank you. It's now up on the board. I'll now speak to my motion. Councillors and those in the gallery and watching at home, you will have followed, some of you I'm sure, the situation regarding an aviation lease proposed at Warnervale Airport involving Nighthawks Aviation. It came as, I have to say, a shock, but not a shock, to see that the company is no longer, well, basically has a winding up order and appointment of a liquidator at this point. I think the thing that is so important for us here is that it was clear that there were some concerns when this matter first came to us as councillors. Obviously, due diligence was applied by our council officers, and obviously I'm thanking them for that. We need to be certain that in future we don't end up in a similar situation, which, as somebody did say to me quite recently over this matter, in a way, council dodged a bullet. Now, I'm well aware of the fact that part of the reason for that is by the due diligence of our staff. And then, of course, we have ended up with not involved with this particular company. I also believe, as my amendment suggests, that although appreciating the response from the Chief Executive Officer, I am concerned that it said that a separate report is not needed at this time. I'm still encouraging and wanting to see a separate report to the April meeting of Council, and as I've said here, if there are confidential matters, then obviously that has to be dealt with in the normal way that we would deal with confidential matters. And I commend this motion. I think it's important that it's here. It's transparent for the community. It lets us all know where things are up to, and it lets us know that we can certainly do a good job of this in future, should there be other aviation leases possibly coming before this council. Thank you.
Councillor Lamont.
Thanks, Marco. Just a question. So council undertook due diligence. I was just wondering through you, Mr Mayor, can the CEO outline what the specific risks were? Like, can we find out, or is that confidential? And did the proponent actually withdraw because of those risks being revealed? Like, was that the reason why they pulled out, or was there other reasons? Thank you.
Through Mr Mayor, Councillor, there's a really detailed CEO response at the end of the report. It outlines what was done in relation to the due diligence to check the financial viability of the proponent. And yeah, we probably don't have a lot more to add other than what's in that list there, but it's quite extensive.
Okay.
Councillor Lamont, is that you?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to speak in support of the motion to say that, excuse me, apologies, paraphrasing Councillor Castle's words of dodging a bullet, it does seem like we did dodge a bullet. A 40-year lease that was proposed, and of course at the time when this matter was being workshopped and so forth, many concerns were raised, but it did demand, clear transparency and rigorous scrutiny, and of course ultimately staff were able to drill down into that, and we were, we were able to learn a lot. But the company did go into liquidation and must have been in a precarious position when we were in fact considering this potential 40-year lease with $10 million being invested. So it's kind of not really about just avoiding, good governance is not about avoiding a bad outcome. It's really about how we can demonstrate what we have learned. Refusing a simple lessons learned report risks like complacency and not confidence. And so it's a fairly modest motion, certainly including asking for the report, because it is asking for that transparency, accountability, and the ability for continuous improvement to be clearly reported on, clearly stated. So if the process is as strong as seems to be claimed here, then there shouldn't be anything to worry about. It's not, proving it shouldn't be a problem. So it's also about what we owe our community. We owe them evidence, not just assurance that, oh, good thing we avoided this. It's, we owe our community significantly more transparency than that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion? No? All those in favour? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Millen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. I'll use my cast and vote against, so the motion's lost. Next item is 7.4, notice of motion applicability of section 68 ministerial authorisation, Wombrel Beach. Councillor Lamont.
I'll move it if I can have a seconder.
Second, Councillor Smith. Yep. Councillor Lamont, you.
Okay. First, a question. I've got a few because of the time limit. I won't ask all of them. What immediate action, through you, Mr Mayor, what immediate action is required at Wombrel Beach today that cannot be addressed through the existing planning and coastal management framework?
Sorry, Councillor, I was talking to the CEO. Could you please repeat the question?
Yep, not a problem. Okay. What immediate action is required at Wombrel Beach today that cannot be addressed through the existing planning and coastal management framework?
Councillors, Council, there's we've got the emergency declaration that proceeds until May. We've got a CMP process that's working out what the approach to management of coastal erosion will look like, and that's a process that we're nearly at the final stages of. And we've got a council resolution to put a submission in under Section 68 to the RA Minister seeking protection works. So we've got a number of processes that are all underway. The other matters that occur are, you would have seen over the recent weekend, there's a high risk to residences along that beach. And council work with the police and the SES about emergency arrangements when there's potential for risk to those houses. So there's a number of different processes all going on, and they are, but there is significantly high risk to that area along Wombrel Beach.
But that, I don't want to, because this meeting's been too nice, don't know why. But that doesn't really answer my question. So what immediate action needs to happen at Wombrel Beach today that can't be addressed through the planning and coastal management framework?
Councillor, that framework is what I was describing. You're seeing the different mechanisms that are being put in place. The coastal management plan is being negotiated with the state about what a suitable arrangement would be to manage coastal erosion. We've got the RA process that could deal with, meaning that we could fast track potential works when that's resolved. And we've got emergency management arrangements with the police that manage it in the lieu of any coastal protection work. So that's really how the framework works. And there's a number of different elements to it that are all coming together at the moment with a number of decisions over the next couple of months.
Mr Mayor, can I please start the clock again, because my time's just about up and it's just one question.
Now, if you start speaking,
Thank
I'll
you.
give you an extension because...
Okay. Councillors, this really comes down to one simple question. Has legal threshold under Section 68 actually been met? Because if it hasn't, nothing else matters. The CEO's response in the paper makes something very clear. These are not emergency works. They are medium to long-term coastal protection works, and that's exactly the problem. Because Section 68 is not a planning shortcut, it's not a convenience tool. It's an emergency power, and a very specific one. It only applies when there is a real and immediate need to protect public safety arising from a disaster or exceptional circumstances requiring urgent action. That's the legal test. And the CEO's response in council's emails to homeowners state that the legal test has not been met. Instead, it talks about future storm risk, hazard mapping, long-term impacts. But future risk is not the test. If this was, we could declare an emergency up and down the entire New South Wales coastline every single day. That's not what the legislation allows. Section 68 is about immediacy. And here's the key point. The CEO has already said in writing there is no immediate risk of significant structural collapse. That alone undermines the use of the Section 68, because you cannot argue urgent emergency action while you're also saying there is no immediate risk. These two positions cannot sit together. And it doesn't stop there. Council also told property owners that the emergency works had changed the risk profile and temporary emergency protection was no longer required. That is not a narrow statement. That is council acknowledging that the emergency phase has ended. I mean, we're looking about 8 months later. Then we were told these works were for future storms. They'll be built in the benign conditions. Again, that confirms it. That is planned infrastructure, not emergency response. And that planned infrastructure belongs in the proper frameworks, the Environmental Planning Assessment Act and the Coastal Management Framework, not Section 68. Now compare this to the North Entrance, or the Entrance North, where the CEO lodged a Section 68 application directly. No notice of motion, no debate. Why? Because the emergency threshold actually existed. Here's the obvious question. If this is truly an emergency, why did it need a notice of motion at all? That question has not been answered. Instead, we heard about
cost to landowners, community benefit, alignment with CMP. All valid policy considerations, but none of them are part of the legal test. And that's where this debate has drifted. This is not about whether we can use a Section 68, it's about whether we should lawfully. Because the real question is simple. Is there an immediate need to act to protect public safety? Based on Council's own advice, the emergency phase ended in July 2025. There is no immediate risk, so the answer is no. And councillors, this is bigger than just this project. This is about governance. Council's own delivery program that we all, voted on last week commits us to lawful, transparent and compliant decision making. Yet the pathway being proposed is the opposite, bypasses normal planning processes, avoids proper assessment and consultation and relies on emergency power where no emergency exists. That is a clear inconsistency. Because we cannot stand here and say process matters and then choose a pathway specifically designed to avoid it. If we allow this, we're not just stretching Section 68, and that has consequences far beyond Wamberal. This motion says do it properly, do it lawfully, and do it through the right process. Because Section 68 is an extraordinary power. It exists for emergencies, not for inconvenience, and if we misuse it here, we're not just setting a precedent for Wamberal, we're setting a precedent for how this council applies the law. Perhaps we should be asking our solicitors what we are all committing this council and the community to in the long term, because I do not think everyone's actually understanding that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mott. No other discussion? All those in favour? Councillor Walsh?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, to Director Nichols.
What was that? Yeah, but
No,
we never put the motion.
I had my light on, so I claim my time. Through you, Mr Mayor, to Director Nichols, you mentioned Section 68, excuse me, you mentioned 68 progressing. What's been, if you could give more detail on what what's specifically happening there, if council has, has there been an indication from the department, from the minister, that Section 68 will be approved for Wamberal Beach?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So councillors, you would have seen in the Coastal Committee this afternoon the draft CMP and has just come off exhibition, and that CMP proposes what should be the appropriate options for managing coastal erosion in sections along the coast, including Wamberal, and that proposes sand nourishment underpinned by a rock revetment wall, so it's a buried rock revetment wall. So that's the key element that we're negotiating with the state about the suitability of what is what should occur in that area. What's happening in parallel to that is council has MHL, Manly Hydraulics, preparing a detailed design for what that would look like in preparation for putting a submission to the Reconstruction Authority Minister under Section 68. So it's important to focus on the CMP proposals and what's being in those. That's really what the state would look at to see if they certify the plan, and then the Section 68 application would allow the Reconstruction Authority Minister to approve those type of works. The two are linked, but it's really up to the Reconstruction Authority Minister whether they use their discretion to approve those works. It's really up to the Minister to decide that, and the Minister has discretion to decide whether those works are temporary or more permanent in nature.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Through you, Mr Mayor, again to Director Nichols. If the Reconstruction Authority Minister, if the Minister comes back rejecting the Section 68, is what you're saying there that the CMP, if certified, accommodates what might otherwise be happening under the Section 68?
through Mr Mayor, so if the state certify the coastal management program, then that would be a matter that would be considered in any further development applications on private land, and what would occur if the Reconstruction Authority Minister declined to approve a Section 68 application, it would revert back into the environmental planning and assessment processes, which would be a development application by individual owners.
Thank you. I'll speak now. So we've had this situation where we found ourselves, and it's many months ago, and the Section 68 has still not been applied for, from what Director Nichols was just sharing with us. This debate has centred on whether council should use emergency disaster legislation to fast-track what are otherwise long-term engineering works at Wamberal Beach. So the conflict has been that the motion highlights that since July 2025, where emergency works were successful at the north entrance, from the get-go, Wamberal has been declared as a non-emergency area, while I'm sure there were situations where residents probably felt like things were fairly difficult for them, but in the CEO's words himself, that was declared that there was no emergency. So we continue to push this idea that a legal framework that is designed for emergency situations be applied to Wamberal Beach. And what does that actually mean if it happens that it gets approved that way, and certainly all of the information that a number of us have received routinely has been that won't happen, then which would be the legal way of dealing with it, and then it gets sent back to the planning process. Well, what does it mean for bushfire areas or all sorts of other disaster and emergency situations that can arise anywhere when that piece of legislation has been used to progress hard works on a beach that it is, has not been declared as an emergency? So the legal integrity is severely compromised, and essentially the disaster laws become a weaponisation that the beachfront owners have found a way to weaponise disaster legislation. So there's a paradox here. The CEO explicitly admits the works are not emergency works, yet we are still insisting on using a disaster response in terms of a legal framework. This is a risk fallacy. It conflates long-term geographic vulnerability, which requires planning, with immediate structural failure, which requires emergency action. So the precedent trap suggests that any property in a hazard zone anywhere, not just Wamberal Beach, should be exempt from standard environmental laws which would effectively dismantle the New South Wales planning system. So the bottom line is the motion seeks to restore governance and transparency, while the CEO's response prioritises administrative expediency by attempting to fit a long-term infrastructure project into an emergency-shaped hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. So no more speakers will put to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Mullen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. I'll use my casting vote against. So the motion is lost. Next item is 7.5, notice of motion Central Coast flag and street banner policy. Councillor Wright. Another seconder. Councillor McQuaid, thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the notice of motion that's in front of you, councillors. For way of background, this is an issue that has been surfacing to varying extents in the Peninsula community and other communities across the Central Coast for a number of years now. There's been some changes to this policy in the last council. There's been some changes to this policy under administration, and to alleviate some of these concerns raised by members of the public with me about being able to fly the Australian flag in public locations, I agreed with those members of the community as part of that consultation process we all know and love to readdress this policy amongst the council and seek a review of the flag and street banner policy here at Central Coast Council. I believe it's important that those seeking to fly the Australian flag proudly in our local streets, on street banner infrastructure, on flag poles, in their backyards, should have the ability to do so. And it's an issue that seems to surface each Australia Day, and with things like Anzac Day coming up, we want to ensure that this policy is robust, it's sound, it's meeting the needs of our community, and it's something that is easy to interpret. So on behalf of not just the Peninsula community, but the other communities that have raised questions with me about this policy, I'm happy to commend this to the council.
Councillor Lamont, or Councillor Smith, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question through you to the staff. So I'm vaguely aware that this issue about the flag policy has been going on for years. And I have to say, I've never quite understood the guts of the issue from Mr Wales, and they have over many years. Could I just ask through you to the staff, can they elaborate on what the actual issue is that has been raised? Has it been raised? No, I'll go through the staff if that's okay, Councillor Neal. What the actual issue is in terms of the policy, if staff are aware, and I thought there, over many years, there's been consideration, there might have been changing of the policy, I can't remember what the current status is. Mr Mayor, through you. Settle down, Councillor Neal.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Some of the concerns have been raised to do with the difference between banners and flags. To fly banners, and you've got and you want the banner to look like either Australian flag or an Aboriginal flag, you actually have to get approval to actually replicate those, because they're a different size, they're a different shape. And I know we've applied for the Australian flag to be done as a banner, which we're allowed to be, but the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags are not owned by the Australian government, so we have to actually apply to have them in a banner shape, which we have applied for them, is what I've been told, and we're waiting for approval to actually be able to reproduce those flags in a non-standard size.
In terms of the policy, because it's not clear to me at all.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Smith. So the specific issue addressed in this motion, and again, as I acknowledge, it is something that's appeared in other parts of the Central Coast over many years, as you rightfully pointed out. This specific example extends to the street banners in Umina and Woy Woy and surrounding suburbs, those who are looking to fly the Australian flag on the banner infrastructure around Australia Day in particular.
So how does that conflict with our policy? It's not clear to me.
So the director has raised other issues with the flag policy that people have raised. This is the predominant issue that has been raised with me.
Is it about approval? Because
So,
the acting director said that we have permission to
no, we're applying for the approvals for the ability to fly all three flags. There is, Councillor Neal, you can't interject. I mean, I can send you staff documentation that shows where we're at to with these things. This is your ward, Councillor Neal.
Councillor Wright, I'll just move on.
Okay, Councillor Neal can try to explain to me an issue in her ward that I'm moving because Councillor Neal is not.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as I said previously, we have applied to get approval to change the shape of the flag for the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander flags. As I'm aware, under the policy, you cannot fly the Australian flag without the other flags if there's enough flag poles to fly the three of them. And in this area, there's enough flag poles to fly the three of them. So we actually need to get approvals to change the shapes of them. We have applied for them. We didn't have approval before Australia Day, but we're anticipating to have approval before next Australia Day.
Okay, and is that to do with our policy or is that an external approval?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our policy currently states that if we don't have all three flags, we can't fly just one of them.
Councillor Neal.
I have to say, I'm very concerned about Councillor Wright. His grasp of this subject matter is so vague and confused that he really shouldn't have attempted his notice of motion without having done a little bit of research. He uses as his excuse his discussions with the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and let me tell you, I've extensively discussed this.
Councillor Neal, can you talk about the motion in front of us, please?
I've extensively discussed this motion with the Chamber of Commerce, which is essentially Deborah and Matthew Wales, and they have absolutely no desire to see this notice of motion get up. The whole issue of the use of the flag is that this policy was reviewed back in just last year in September, obviously using extensive time and resources of the community to do so. At that time, no objections were raised. Councillor Wright himself raised no objection, but obviously in search of a notice of motion, he decided to pursue this, wasting both the time of the council and the time of the officers who may have to review it again within essentially a 6-month period. The core problem is that the provision requires that if you fly a flag, an Australian flag, you're required to also fly a Torres Strait Islander and an Indigenous flag. That provision does not apply to banners, so that there's no permission required. It's if you are flying a banner, and the banner may contain the representation of the Australian flag and some wording such as Australia Day, then it becomes a banner. Therefore, the provision to also fly an Indigenous and a Torres Strait Islander flag do not apply. So this is a proposition that the director discussed with the Walesers and myself. It was a solution that meant that no one had to do any additional work. It meant that the community could have the flag as they desired it, and that was all round a generally positive outcome. There's no necessity for this motion. It's a waste of everybody's time and does not resolve the problem in any way, because the problem has been resolved by determining, and I give due credit to the director for doing so, determining that a banner can be flown by itself on a flagpole on Australia Day, so long as it may include the flag but has to have some other wording on it, which is anything you like, but say, Happy Australia Day.
Councillor Lamont.
Just a question. I'm just wondering whether, to me it sounds more like it's confusion of what the policy actually represents in the community more than anything. No, but I think what we've got is correct. I don't see why we have to change it, because what we've got there seems to be pretty clear. And I don't know why we need to change what's already there when, to me, it sounds like it's being the use of different things like the banners and the flagpoles and everything's being misinterpreted. That's the way I'm sort of understanding what's happening.
Thanks, Councillor Lamont. Would you like to close, Councillor?
Yeah. So I think this is an attempt by Councillor Neal to try and confuse people by saying there's been a different variation of events. I've had a meeting with the director, with council staff, with many members of this community, which again is actually Councillor Neal's ward. Yeah, I'm closing debate. She doesn't look too happy.
No, but when we closed it, there were no other councillors flashing. Sorry.
So this is a very simple thing. staff have identified, as have members of the community, that there are some very small tweaks that can be made to this policy that will make it easier to interpret, make it crystal clear some of the ideas that Councillor Neal has spoken about. I don't think this debate needs to go on any further. It is a simple fix to deliver a good outcome to a great community.
Thank you. So putting the vote, sorry, Councillor Walsh, he'd closed. All those in favour? Councillor McKenna, Councillor Millen, Councillor Daniels, Councillor Stanton, Councillor Wright, Councillor McNamara, Councillor McQuaid. All those against? Councillor McGregor, Councillor Castles, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Neal, Councillor Lamont, Councillor Smith. I'll use my casting vote for, and that's the motion is carried.
Your friends are your friends when they support you when you're right. They're even more friends if they support you when you're wrong.
Thank you for that. Item 3.1, deferred item environment and planning minutes and recommendations, January 2026, outcomes of the Heritage Strategy Workshop. Councillor Walsh, as the Deputy Chair of the Environment and Planning Committee, would you like to introduce this item? Because Councillor Eaton's not here. No? Councillor
Mr. Mayor, can I just check which Environment and Planning Committee it's referring to? Is it
January 2026.
January 26. So is it the
December, actually.
it's December, is it?
It'd have to be. Like, we didn't have an EMP in January, so it'd have to be December.
So it's not the February ones where we had the confidential session and... No? Okay. So it's December, and it's just looking at the recommendation from... Okay, all right, thank you. I am... Sorry, are you moving that, Councillor Walsh? Okay, I'm happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question about the business paper, which relates to this item? There was an item delayed last week, or deferred, sorry, last week from the Environment and Planning Committee in relation to the proposal that was at the last Environment and Planning Committee meeting to have Woi Woi as an accelerated TOD precinct. Is that on the agenda tonight? Was that not deferred?
Deferred to next meeting.
Deferred to next meeting, not deferred till tonight?
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at the Woi Woi TOD item at the EP committee, it was lost, so no recommendation was put to council at the last meeting or the start of this meeting, and that matter is being considered for a future EP committee meeting to be reintroduced. Yep.
All right. You've got Walsh and Smith. No further speakers.
Mr. Mayor, can
Councillor
I just
Smith.
ask a question? So this is just adopting those recommendations, is that right, through you to the Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is from December, councillors. So you would remember that there was the Heritage workshop where we had a lot of people involved in working out what we should do with the Heritage program. It was deferred after that, and then we didn't get it into the agenda for February when it was meant to come through. So it is a little bit late, but it's just a matter that was deferred from December.
So with that in mind, and assuming if this goes through tonight that it is adopting those recommendations, the outcomes or those recommendations that, for example, say investigate the small grants program or recommends at least one project be commenced, will they then come back to a future Environment Planning Committee's sort of progress on those?
Through Mr. Mayor, so we've got the terms of reference for the Heritage Subcommittee going up to the April EP committee meeting, so next week, and then we'd like to get that subcommittee up and going for a June meeting. So, so what we do is we'd probably have the first discussion through the subcommittee, and then it would go back to the EP committee after that.
Okay, so we'll come back. There will be a closing of the loop. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just a further point.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, sorry, just a further point of clarity. Given that the Environment Planning Committee doesn't have delegated authority to make a decision, would the motion not have come to council in the minutes of the business paper that we would have had? Or was that moved?
It could have been picked out of the minutes. It wasn't. So you've missed your opportunity, for want of a better word.
All right. No more discussion. All those in favour? Unanimous, and Councillor Daniels is out of the room. So, but unanimous. Next item, 3.2, deferred item, draft roadside tributes policy for adoption. We've got a mover for Councillor Lamont.
I initially started this one, but since last week I have done some research and have the answers to the questions that I was originally going to ask, so I'm happy to just put this. Yeah.
Yeah, got a seconder. Councillor Castles. No discussion?
No.
All those in favour? Unanimous. Councillor Daniels is still out of the room. Thank you. Oh, here she comes. Councillor Daniels, unanimous? Yep. Thank you. Item 3.5, deferred item, Avoca Beach Rockpool Accessibility Assessment. Councillor Lamont, you still got your buzzer on, sorry. Have we got a mover for this? Councillor Walsh, can I have a seconder? Councillor Neal.
I'm a seconder, but I also do have an amendment. It has been provided to the staff. That should be quite brief. I provided it last week. Do you want to speak before I speak an amendment?
Yeah, sure. So just while we're waiting for that, I did just have a couple of questions through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Nichols. I am aware that progress has already happened in terms of progressing, improving accessibility to the Avoca Beach Rockpool. And I would also like to thank the staff for the work they've already done on this. It's been, let me say, enjoyable trying to progress this work for those, on behalf of those with mobility and disability issues in our community in terms of accessing our oceans. So I see that the railings have gone up at Avoca, fantastic. Just would like some clarity on how things have progressed in terms of the actual rocks in the Rockpool.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councillor, when they did the inspections, there was a significant amount of sand in the rock pool, so at that stage it wasn't appropriate to remove any of the rocks in the bottom, but they're keeping an eye on it, and if the sand does get removed and the rocks are exposed again, we'll start to remove some of the rocks.
Thank you.
No, Councillor Neal.
Obviously, I strongly support the motions put up by Councillor Walsh, but I'd also like to commend the addition, which is an amendment that I have moved. There is a very similar issue with access to the Pearl Beach Rockpool area, and a number of community members have raised the issue with me, and I've also had the matter raised by the federal member Gordon Reid about issues about accessibility to this area. So this is really seeking a further report in relation to Pearl Beach Rockpool surrounding the same sorts of issues that are relevant to Avoca Beach Rockpool.
Councillor Walsh, was that your changes in there?
If I could just ask a clarifying question or a couple of questions before accepting that amendment through you, Mr Mayor, to Director Nichols. Is there anything about Councillor Neal's proposed amendment that would hold up, hinder, impact the progress at Avoca Beach?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, Councillor, we're getting pretty good at these reports now, so we'll get one for Councillor Neal as well.
So you can walk and chew gum at the same time, yeah.
All right, thanks for that. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 3.6, the third item, pollution and health risk to Ash Dams. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might just... so the recommendation, I think, from the staff, I just want to add a part 3, which is to refer this item to the EMP committee for further consideration at the May 2026 meeting and invite a representative from the Coal Ash Alliance to present on the work of the Alliance. I know the staff didn't get that, but they can probably pick it up later. If I have a seconder.
Yeah, Councillor Lamont, thank you.
Mr Mayor, I thank the staff for the detailed information in the report. Very much appreciated. I do see this issue of the coal ash as a massive issue in the northern part of our Central Coast, and it's one of those issues that not quite falls through the cracks, but nobody seems to have the will, the capacity or the desire to really tackle the issue. And I think it is an issue that is going to come back and bite our community, whether it's 10 years away or further, I don't know. So I'm not entirely sure what to do with this. I'd like us to stay vigilant on this issue. So I would like to invite a representative from the Coal Ash Alliance to come and present to that committee on their concerns and the work that they are doing to see where council may or may not have a role. I don't know how many people in this room remember the whole Pasminco issue up in Lake Macquarie, the smelter, the legacy issues around that. It's probably 25 years ago now, but the issues there, the environmental issues, and they're different issues, so I'm not suggesting they're the same issues, but I think lead was the big issue up there. And really Lake Macquarie Council ended up having to be heavily involved in those legacy issues because there was housing development going in that area. So this is an area in the northern part of our council area where there is a lot of planned development. And this is not about saying that development shouldn't happen, but it's saying we should be across the issues and the emerging issues and be doing what we can to make sure that we are not supporting people, putting people in harm's way, if that is the case. I think there is a lot of, I would call it evidence. Some people would dispute it, but a lot of concerns about some of the legacy issues up there, and I'd really like this council to get across it. There were some things in the staff response about air quality monitoring. I think we've still only got one air quality monitoring site in the northern end. I think there was another one put in at Wyong, but that to me does not seem to be adequate in terms of some of the issues that might be emerging there. So, Mr Mayor, I hope this motion will be supported. It really is just getting it referred to the MP committee, not necessarily the committee I'd like to refer it to, but it's the most appropriate one. And also getting a representative of the Coal Ash Alliance to come and talk about what they're doing and what their concerns are so that we can be across those issues. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Moreland.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I also support this motion to Councillor Smith's words. Yeah, the North may be severely impacted by this long term. There's a lot of differing information out there, so having a presentation by the association back to the EMP committee would be very worthwhile. So I welcome part 3 of the motion.
Thank you. No other discussion? All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. The third item, active council resolution status update. Councillor Lamont?
Yep. I actually spoke to Director Nichols about this outstanding item today. I don't know whether he's had a chance to resolve or look at the outstanding item.
Can I have a seconder for Councillor Lamont's motion, please? Councillor Walsh.
So there's an item, a resolution 58425 that's just not on the report, but it's never actually, as far as I can see, nothing's ever happened with the resolution. I'm just trying to find out what is actually going on with it. But as I said, I spoke to, or Director Nichols did approach me about it at the earlier meeting we had.
Through Mr Mayor, yeah, Councillor, we couldn't find it this afternoon, but maybe if we could take it on notice, we'll be able to get an answer back to you. So,
okay, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Councillor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question. I did look through the table when I was reading the attachment. So on page 72, item 687/25, and I'm just querying a phrase, and I'm sorry, this is almost trivial, but since we're there, I may as well. In the action taken, it says due to changes in code of meeting policy. And when I read that, I just wasn't sure what the changes to the code of meeting policy are. I'm wondering if I might be able to get a response to that. So I don't know.
Through Mr Mayor, Councillor, I can only think that we were going to do a briefing to councillors, and now we're going to put it through the EP committee. That's all I can think of.
All right. Okay. Look, I'll have a look at it and I'll follow up if that doesn't satisfy. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
No other discussion. All those in favour? Unanimous, and Councillor McGregor's out of the room. Thank you.
Go into confidential, please. I know yourself and the CEO swim down at Terrigal. I've had a few comments made to me and even on social media about Terrigal Beach being depleted of sand, and there's business people there that are concerned about with the Easter weekend and the holidays next week, what the beach looks like. So I'm just wondering if you know whether, can we do any beach scraping? Is it in a bad way? Like, does anything need to be done?
The CEO's not been down for a couple of days. I've been down the last few days, and it's pretty high, but it's coming back today. So today there was an improvement for the last 2 days. So and it was quite calm out there today.
So it's not so much the calmness. Some of the shop owners have complained that there's no beach there. That's what they're saying. As I said, I haven't been down there, but if you look at social media, they're saying, oh, the beach is gone. So I'm just wondering, I know in the past it's happened and we've scraped sand. I don't know whether that's needed. As I said, I haven't been there, and that's when I'm relying on what you guys think. It's like people are saying the ramps that you go down, they're quite high, that you can't actually walk down them and stuff like that.
So yeah, so it was brought up this morning, and I've put in an email today. So the step where the ramp comes down is, well, it's a step of about 1.5 feet. It was less today than it was yesterday, and I've sent in an email, so I'll follow up that. But it was definitely a big step.
The sand is accreting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it won't affect, I think they're just worried about holiday use of the beach. Okay.
Yeah.
It was extremely high on Monday morning. Essentially, there's virtually no beach. Certainly, as you got towards the boardwalk end, that end where all the drains are, that was almost completely covered in water because of the anomaly of the very, very high tide. But typically what happens is that it accretes back pretty quickly.
Thank you, but it wasn't as bad today, so hopefully tomorrow it'll be back to normal. Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Wright. All those in favour to get into confidential? Councillor unanimous, and Councillor McNamara's out of the room. Thank you. So I need to ask the gallery and that to please leave.
thanks. If they're there, I'm sure Marilyn will be waiting eagerly. That's okay. Yeah, John? Sorry? We're live, are we? Okay. There are people. In the closed session of Council, Council resolved that Council notes the background to the resolution arising from the confidential session of the Environment and Planning Committee meeting held on the 3rd of February 2026. 2, it notes that all committees of Council have delegation within their terms of reference to create subcommittees for the purpose of specific tasks or functions. This delegation extends to the adoption of terms of reference and membership. And 3, it confirms that any proposed removal of a community member of a subcommittee for alleged breach of the Code of Conduct be supported by an investigation conducted in accordance with the procedures for the administration of the Code. No, that's the staff recommendation. You're happy with those? We'll just post that up. There it is. You don't need to recommit that. You don't need to recommit that. Okay, that's the signs, it's okay. Okay, just close the meeting.
Councillors in the gallery, I'd just like to close the meeting now at 9:32. Thank you.